My entitled college roommates, as well as her friends, all keep eating my food constantly, as they are constantly eating all of my food prep, despite the fact that I've begged them to please stop doing that. So I decided to get some revenge by making some spaghetti that also had pig brain in it, giving these women the surprise of a lifetime when I revealed exactly what they're eating. And I've honestly never felt better in my life about getting back at anybody before. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was in college full-time and working full-time, so I had little time to do any meal prep. I would make enough meals for a few days and then store them on my designated shelf in our shared dorm fridge. I'd come home from a very long day and just want to eat and relax, but I'd almost always have no food left. And 9 times out of 10, I would walk in on my roommates eating my meals. They would even have the guts to say how good it tasted and that they're sad there wasn't more. I've asked over and over to stop eating my food, but no, they just simply wouldn't listen. So I went home to my parents' house and I made a lot of spaghetti. And this was seriously some good spaghetti. And I did it this way knowing that they would most certainly eat the whole thing. Well, sure enough, I get home to my dorm after a long day, and these 3, not even my roommates, are standing in the kitchen eating my spaghetti, and the huge bowl is almost gone. The one girl says how much she loves it and wants to know how I made it. Well, I straight-faced tell her that it's a common meal we make on the farm. We go to the butcher and get head cheese, and that's the meat in the spaghetti. Now, she was really confused because they're city kids and didn't know what head cheese was. So I answered by saying, well, it's pig brains. It's really good, isn't it? That's what most of my meals are made from. Well, when I said that, she throws my bowl of spaghetti down and runs to the bathroom, puking literally everywhere. The others also took off out of the dorm room running as well. And that's how I ended them stealing my food with such petty, sweet revenge. Nobody ever touched my food ever again, nor did they ever talk to me ever again, which for me was a complete win. This is probably the craziest way to get revenge on someone I've ever heard in my life. Like, my God, that has got to be like some sinister stuff, dude. Like, I can't imagine doing that. And sure, brain is edible, I guess, but I'm never gonna eat that, dude. That's crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, this is hilarious. Like, I think what you did is brilliant, but there's no way I would ever do something like that, dude. That's like way beyond my scope of practice. And with all things considered and the fact that you've tried to resolve this like a normal human being, I don't blame you for being like, okay, we're gonna take extreme measures. Like, these people were stealing your food. Like, that just is messed up in my opinion. You're probably a poor college student and you have like no money and you're working full time and going to college full time. Like, life is rough when you're doing that. So for you to come home and see like, oh good, my roommates and other people I don't know are eating all my food. Like, I'm pretty sure I would snap as well in this kind of situation and be like, oh, enough is enough. But I think I can confidently say I would never be like, okay, I'm gonna make them eat brains. Like, that's some crazy stuff there, dude. So good for you for getting your petty revenge, because these people literally became zombies without realizing it, and that is hilarious to me. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not covering my coworker shift when she had a family emergency that turned out to be a concert she went to instead? Because right now I feel like I got manipulated hard, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I'm a 28-year-old male and I work at a restaurant. My coworker, who we will call Jessica, asked me to cover her Saturday night shift because of a family emergency. Now, I had plans with my girlfriend, but Jessica seemed really upset and said it was urgent, so I disagreed. Now, Saturday night was brutal. We were slammed and I worked a double shift. Well, on Sunday morning, I'm scrolling Instagram and I see Jessica's story from the night before. And this is where I found out that she was at a Harry Styles concert with her friends, posting videos and clearly having a good time. Now, when I saw this, I was furious. I confronted her Monday and she got defensive, saying her cousin had an extra ticket and she needed to de-stress after her family drama. When I asked what the emergency was, she said her parents were fighting and she couldn't handle being home. But I told her that wasn't an emergency, and she basically lied to get me to cover her shift. She then said I was being unsympathetic and that I don't understand her family situation. And you know what? Other coworkers are now taking sides. My manager found out and she's making Jessica pay me back for the shift, but she's telling everyone I'm a snitch who got her in trouble. Some people agree with me and others think I should have just minded my own business since I already worked the shift. I feel like I was manipulated into giving up my weekend for her concert, but maybe I should have just let it go. I mean, she is young and maybe I was just a little too harsh on her. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm not sure what's going on. No, you're not the jerk. This is some weird, insane behavior. You mean to tell me that she tried to be like, oh, this is a family emergency, and then she turns around and goes to a Harry Styles concert? Like, dude, that's not an emergency. I totally understand that you're like, man, my family life is so hard. But for her to then turn around and be like, my only way to de-stress is by going to see Harry Styles. You just don't understand. And it's like, dude, clearly I don't understand, and I don't think I want to understand, because you practically lied to your coworker just to go to this concert. Like, that's all that's going on here, and it kind of seems like she admits that by being like, oh, you snitched on me. So no, you're not the jerk, because Jessica is being incredibly toxic. An entitled mom lets her kids run wild and then gets mad at me because I didn't let them touch my food, resulting in one of the craziest interactions I've ever had in my life, as this Karen tried to claim that I was taking some kind of illegal substance. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 23-year-old male from the Netherlands, and I went to McDonald's with my fiance for a chill meal. We are child-free, but I'm genuinely fine with kids, you know, as long as they behave. Now for me, I'm a punk with tattoos and piercings, so I get stared at by kids often, and this just doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is kids screaming, running around, throwing toys, and climbing on furniture while the parents sit back like it's a spa. And you know what? That's exactly what happened here. Two young kids were literally using tables and chairs as a jungle gym. They were yelling and they were throwing a toy car. There was even an iPad on their table, but they completely ignored it. The three moms, with one of them being the Karen leader, paid absolutely no attention to any of this. And these kids kept running right up to our table. So we turned a chair to block the path and I set up a barrier with a few more. I honestly just wanted to eat in peace. And that's when the Karen gets up with her goblins and storms over. She looks at us and says, "Is there a problem?" I respond by saying, "Yeah, your kids keep running up to us, so I block the table." The entitled Karen says, "You're looking at them strange. You're unfriendly." And I said, "No, lady, I'm just trying to eat my food." She then starts yelling at me. "This is McDonald's, not a 5-star restaurant. This is the Amsterdam ghetto." And I said to her, "Yeah, and it's not a playground either. Control your kids." She then hits me by saying, "This is the Netherlands. We speak Dutch here." But I responded back by saying, "Then why are you speaking to me in English?" But at this point, this is when she went full Karen mode on me. She then screamed out, "Are you on some kind of substance? It looks like you are." So I just sarcastically responded back and said, "Yes, I am, and I'm using the worst ones too." Well, she didn't like that response because she screamed back, "Screw you," and she flipped me off as she stormed back. Now, I stayed calm and I didn't raise my voice once. But before leaving, just out of spite, I placed my ADHD medication on top of my ice cream so that she could see it. Then I jokingly said, "Oh, we should try some other substances tonight." And I did this as we walked out. Now, I never insulted her or her kids first. I didn't yell, and instead, I just matched her energy, and I said what the staff couldn't. Now, some of my friends said that I was way too much, and others say that I handled it like a pro. So seriously, please let me know if I'm the jerk here, because honestly, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I want to echo what some of the people in the comments section of this post said, and basically reiterate that yeah, I hate people who act like this. They let their kids run all over the place, and they ruin basically any eating establishment for everyone around them. Like seriously, people are trying to eat in peace. They're not trying to deal with your garbage. Like you're the one allowing these little brats to disturb everybody around them, not the other way around, dude. And I just love the fact that she's like, "Oh wow, you look different, so you're unfriendly and we don't like you." Like dude, just mind your own business. People can have tattoos and have piercings, like that's completely fine. What isn't fine is allowing your kids to scream and run around and disrupt other people. You know, the very people who were not bothering you in the first place. So no, you did not do anything wrong. You defended yourself and you stood up for yourself when this lady was acting crazy. And in my opinion, if anybody's on some kind of substance, it's absolutely this Karen and not you. Am I the jerk for not catering to my nephew's pickiness? Because literally, I can't get anything right. And I'm honestly starting to lose my mind because I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, my sister-in-law is staying with us for a few months while they move, and honestly, it's been tough. I work from home while she's a stay-at-home mom, so she is at home with me and her kids. Honestly, I don't mind them here much. My kid loves her cousins, and it's nice having someone to talk to at home during the day. But the tough part is cooking for them. Not only am I cooking double the amount I'm used to, but I also have to figure out what to make for them. Usually, I cook one dish and then we just all eat it. No complaints or choice otherwise, because that's just how I grew up, and I never saw a problem with it. I don't force feed anybody. I just set the bowl in front of them and they eat as much as they want. And it's great. My daughter eats everything and rarely expresses she doesn't like something. But my sister-in-law's kids are very picky. They don't like tomato sauce. They don't like veggies. They don't like melted cheese. They don't like mayonnaise on their burger, but they do on their sandwich. They don't like soggy cereal, and honestly, the list just goes on and on. Every day I try to make something they like. I made pancakes once, and my sister-in-law was like, "Oh, what's the recipe that you use?" My oldest only eats a specific one. Like when she walks in, she goes over the top to explain to this 6-year-old that this is a different recipe, and that now he's gonna have to try it. But of course, he refuses to try it until she forces him to take a bite, and then he just throws a fit because he doesn't like it. Meanwhile, the rest of the kids are just eating quietly at the table. Any meal I make, I'm already expecting her to say something about it. Yesterday, I made sliders hoping that would be fine. But no, she asked me to make half of them specific to the older child's taste. No cheese or sauce, just bread and meat. And even still, he just wouldn't eat it. And this is because, well, he didn't know about the taste. Anyways, I've been already cooking with way less vegetables than I usually do, and I'm honestly at my wit's end. But I refuse to cook mac and cheese boxes and no sauce pizza every single night. My freezer and pantry are all filled with processed food, and we've got snacks that we usually don't have because her kids don't snack on fruits and vegetables. They snack on chips and donuts. And I'm seriously not even kidding. I have not seen her kids consume any fruit or vegetables for the past few days. So am I the jerk for not catering to their pickiness? I'm trying to keep balanced meals for my own family, and I refuse to change that just because they don't want to eat it. What should I do? Oh man, this is so annoying. You know for a fact the sister-in-law is making this worse by saying anything. Those kids aren't going to know what's different about it. They're going to be like, oh cool, pancakes, let me eat some, thanks. And then chances are they're just going to eat it and then there's not going to be any problems. I'm even willing to bet that there are no problems and it's the mom who's making the problems. Like this isn't something the kids want, it's something that she wants for her kids, and not the other way around. She's fabricating problems for like no reason, and that is so obnoxious in my opinion. So if I was in your shoes, I would be like, look, I'm gonna cook for my family and you're gonna cook for yours, because clearly I can't get any of this right and you're just gonna have to pick it up and do it yourself. Because this is ridiculous. Like, you're not doing anything wrong, you're cooking very basic stuff, and it's not like you're doing anything that's out of the ordinary. And the fact that it's not right is completely on your sister-in-law and not you. An entitled jerk coming to see my family literally wants her friend to have the plane wait for her, all because she was late and refused to plan on time. And I'm honestly so blown away by this level of entitlement because I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by giving some background information. A couple of years ago, my parents got a new summer house in southern Turkey and decided to throw a big New Year's party. So they invited all their friends, but they ended up inviting too many people that I wasn't even allowed to have a +1, which, okay, that's completely fine. I mean, that's life. It's not that big of a deal. The 31st of December was on Sunday, so the plan was for everyone to get there on Friday night by plane. I took an earlier flight to avoid traffic to reach the airport and just to avoid the crowds at the airport. It usually takes about 30 minutes for me to reach the airport, but I left the office an hour before just to make sure. Anyways, when I arrived, my mom pulled me aside and told me that the daughter of one of the invited families decided to invite her friend without asking anyone. And I was pissed, as I, the daughter of the host, is not allowed to bring anyone, but someone else just thought it was okay to invite a person that no one ever heard of, let alone met. But the real kicker starts after this. These two girls, let's call them Amanda for the daughter and Diana for the unexpected +1, had to take a flight at around 8 o'clock p.m. But at about 7:30 p.m., Amanda's calling her mom, telling her that Diana is going to miss the flight due to heavy traffic. Her mom just says, okay, don't panic. You go ahead and board the plane and Diana can just take the next flight. And honestly, so far so good. Then Diana calls. She's in full-blown panic mode, crying and screaming that it's Amanda's fault that she missed the plane by 15 minutes. Apparently, Amanda should have just made the flight attendants not close the door and make the whole plane just wait for her. And when I heard this, I was like, is she seriously being for real? And yes, she truly believes that Amanda could have gotten the plane to wait for her. Upon questioning her a little bit more, I learned that even though she lives like near the metro station that takes you directly to the airport, she chose to take a taxi, 45 minutes before boarding time, for a trip that usually lasts 1 hour. But she keeps claiming that she should have just been able to catch the plane if Amanda made the plane wait for her. When I asked her how she was supposed to do that, she said Amanda could have waited by the door and not let them close it. And honestly, how entitled can you possibly be to think that just because you are terrible to plan ahead on one of the busiest nights of the year, and because you left late, somehow a plane full of people must wait for you as well? It's honestly mind-blowing and one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, this is some stupid entitlement. You really think that the whole plane's gonna wait for you just because you can't plan? Like, dude, that's not gonna happen for a second, and you are crazy if you think it is. So yeah, I completely agree with the original poster because this is a very weird situation. My coworker got her license suspended, so I've been giving her a ride to work as she does live close by. But now it's become obvious that she's been taking advantage of my kindness, as she is literally starting to ask way too much of me in a way that's really making me uncomfortable. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I'm a 24-year-old female and I work with this girl who we will call Bethany, who got her license suspended last month for way too many speeding tickets. She lives about 15 minutes away from me and asked if I could give her rides to work until she gets it back in 6 months. Now, at first I said yes because I felt bad for her, but it's becoming a huge pain in the neck. She's never ready when I get there, usually making me wait 10 to 15 minutes, which honestly makes me late. On top of that, she doesn't offer gas money, even though it adds 30 minutes to my commute each day. And she always wants to stop places on the way home since we're already out. The final straw was Friday when she asked if we could pick up her friend Jessica from the airport after work. When I said no because it was completely out of the way, she got mad and said I was being unreasonable since, according to her, it's not like I'm asking for much. Well, yesterday I told her I couldn't give her rides anymore and she would need to find other arrangements. When I said this, she started crying and said I was abandoning her when she needed help the most. And now she's telling everyone at work that I'm selfish and that I'm being heartless. I feel bad, but also I feel like she's taking advantage of me. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where the friend is absolutely taking advantage of you, and she is literally just using you for a ride. And the way she's doing it is so telling, like she's starting off small by being like, oh yeah, let's stop here on the way. We're already out, it's not a big deal. Not to mention her not giving you any money for gas, like that's super sketchy. You would think that's like the bare minimum thing she would do just to like make up for the fact that she's taking all your time and money. But for her to be like, oh, you're abandoning me after you decided, no, I'm not gonna drive to the airport, like she is being super manipulative, it's honestly not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because this coworker is being incredibly rude. Today, I mocked a customer into leaving the store after he decided to get an attitude with me about how busy we were. Because today, I simply wasn't having it and this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in a discount store, which is a fairly large store that sells a variety of items with 5 checkout lanes. Now today, there were only 2 of us on the tills and it was very busy. Long queues for the both of us, no time for breaks, because we just didn't have anyone else who could step in and help. So customers were very grouchy and very impatient, which is honestly the usual for me. So I'm serving, trying to get as many people through the line as possible, and my gaze lands on a guy who's just kind of like lingering along the fringes of the queue. He's not joining in and just standing in place like he's looking to jump the line or something like that. He sees me looking and then calls over really loudly, "Can't you just open up another register?" And I'm just like, are you kidding right now, man? If I had anyone else who could be on the tills, they would be on the tills. We're not hiding able-bodied employees up our butts to inconvenience you. And honestly, I'm not sure why this guy specifically made me snap. I get asked this so many times when it gets busy, and normally I can just control myself and just smile and apologize politely no matter how much I hate that question. But today was just way different. I then look at him and I'm just like, wow, that's such a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? I then call out my supervisor and I say, hey Colin, why don't we just get someone else on the till? My supervisor doesn't look back at me, but instead just answers and says, we don't have anyone to help. So I look back at the guy, sarcastic smile completely gone, with a deadpan look, and I say, we don't have anyone. He then looks incredulous for a moment and then replies by saying, this long line and there's only 2 of you? But I just smile again and I say, welcome to retail, all chipper-like, before returning my attention to my customer, whose items I assure you had not stopped scanning during the momentary bout of pettiness. The next time I look over, he's then walking out of the shop with his items just dropped on the floor and everything. And yes, I could have been nicer and I could have been more respectful, but honestly, I do not regret the way I acted in the slightest. Oh yeah, I love this so much because customers like this are so annoying. You're literally packed with 2 lines and this guy's like, this is too long for me. You need to open up another register. And it's like, oh, you caught us. Let's get those employees we're hiding in the back. Like seriously, what a dumb question and what a dumb way to approach pretty much anybody working their job. Do you really think they don't have people available and ready to like help out and do their job? Like seriously, get a grip. That's so annoying. So yeah, you didn't do anything wrong because this guy absolutely deserved to get mocked because his question was really dumb and very condescending. An entitled jerk tries to scam my restaurant by trying to claim that we broke the windshield of his car with our menus, even though that literally is not possible. Here's what happened. Okay, when I was a teenager, a local restaurant paid kids to put their menus on car windshields. I would sometimes hang out in the restaurant because the menus were typically delivered the same days each month, and jobs were first come, first served. So if you came early, you could get as many menus as you wanted, rather than hoping that enough would be left so that you can earn some decent money. Now, occasionally, someone would approach me and complain about me leaving things on their car, but we were just instructed to apologize to those people and give them a generous coupon for their inconvenience. But ironically enough, the ones who got pissed off were usually the ones who became customers, because the coupon we gave was really solid. One day, I was hanging out in the dining area waiting for flyers, and a young man, maybe in his early 30s at most, stormed in and started yelling for the manager. Now, this place was chronically understaffed, so the closest thing we had was a veteran server who had been with the restaurant for maybe about 10 years. The server basically said, okay, where's the fire? How can I help you? Please stop shouting in the dining area. We can make out that the guy was upset about his windshield between him shouting and some of the awful things he was saying. Now, we figured he didn't like having a menu put on his car, but he kept insisting that the server go outside to look, and I decided to follow out simply out of morbid curiosity. When I went out there, I saw a little Miata 2-seater convertible was parked outside with a strikingly amateur yellow wrap job and a windshield fully shattered. Now, the server was pretty confused at that point, and he asked the guy, wait a second, you don't seriously think one of our teenage menu kids did this, do you? To which the driver shouted back and said, of course he did. He slammed the menu down so hard he trashed my windshield. This is my only vehicle. I need to be reimbursed. Now, the server tried to calm him down and was eventually able to discern that his assertion was that there was a menu on or around his windshield was smashed, and that we must be to blame. The server then looked at the guy and said, look, a 1-page paper menu clearly didn't do that. It looks like someone maybe tried to carjack you. You should probably file a police report. Well, when the server said that, this got this guy really riled up, because calling the police was his ace in the hole subtle intimidation tactic, as he was literally shouting incoherently. He then shouted back by saying, "Don't try reverse psychology on me. I am going to call the police." Now, the server had no skin in the game either way, because they didn't place the menus or even own the restaurant. So they coolly responded, "Okay, good idea, you should do that. Feel free to use our phone if you need it, I guess." And the guy got all red-faced and worked up, saying that we had to cut him a check there and then, or we would be breaking even more laws, harping that our negligence was to blame. The server then told him there was nothing more we could do under these circumstances, and then he took off. Now, I didn't hear anything more about it for a bit. I got my batch of menus and I came back at the end of the day to get paid. And apparently, while I was out, a nightlife business that sometimes places flyers called us to warn us about a guy that was trying to say their flyer trashed his windshield and that they believed it was a scam. So after we heard that, we went ahead and called the police. And sure enough, the responding officer said the guy was known to them and that this was just the latest thing he was trying to do in a string of bottom barrel grifting, which honestly, overall is incredibly mind-blowing. Oh man, imagine being so stupid that you really thought, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get these guys once and for all. They're gonna pay for everything that happened to my windshield." When in reality, this guy probably broke his own windshield just to try and scam people. Or it got broken in some way and he's like, "Okay, this is my chance." Like, what a loser. Seriously, get a life. So I just love the fact that the cops were well aware of this weirdo, because these types of methods to try and scam people is just completely messed up.
Do not feed your kids Cheerios. Alright, see what happens when I don't. I was at the doctor's office today and had to bring my 15-month-old twins with me. These kiddos do not enjoy being cooped up in a stroller, but letting them wander around isn't an option since they both will immediately bolt in opposite directions. They have clean nappies, they've been fed and hydrated, so at this point any fussing is just stroller-related crankiness. In preparation for having to wait a while, and wanting to be considerate of the others who were in waiting room purgatory with me, I packed the diaper bag full of endless snacks and sippy cups. Sure enough, 5 minutes in, they lose their minds, so I instantly start giving them snacks and also walking back and forth in the very large waiting room. I'm at the back area and not even close to being in anyone's way, and as long as I'm pacing, these beasties will quietly munch away on their Cheerios. At one point, I stop pacing to hear the doctor mumble the next patient's name in another barely audible whisper, and this is where cranky old lady decides to weigh in on my parenting. I hear a huffing noise and look over at her, and the second we make eye contact, she says, "Oh my god, you've got to stop walking up and down that back area. You're making me dizzy. Also, you really shouldn't be feeding them that much. Just sit down and they'll relax too. Watching toddlers really shouldn't be that hard, honey." Okay, thanks. Firstly, while my girls are very healthy, they were preemies, born at 3 pounds, which is about 1.5 kilos. And they're still very tiny, so I'll feed them all the damn Cheerios I want. Secondly, I'm doing all of this not for myself or the twins, but for the benefit of all those around us. Finally, I was waiting to find out if my scans showed that I had the big C disease or not. Hooray, my scans were clean later. But, understandably, I was stressed as all heck at the given moment. Now for the malicious compliance. I took this old bat's advice and sat down, right next to her. Tons of empty seats everywhere, by the way. Instantly, my kids start screaming their heads off, and what do? I pull out my book and start reading. Anyone who's ever been seated next to a stranger's baby having a meltdown, close your eyes and imagine that awful moment, and now double it to account for twins. Within 5 minutes, this lady's looking like she's about to snap and suggests that they might actually want a snack. To which I calmly respond, "No, I really shouldn't be feeding them that much," and I calmly turn the page of my book. 10 minutes later, my name is finally called and this lady looks like she's ready to give up on life. I, however, have read my first chapter in ages. I guess watching toddlers really isn't that hard after all. Did I go too far? Am I the jerk here? Well, good author, I'd call that an educating moment that you inflicted on the old cow. But let's be honest, most of the jerks in these stories are kind of incapable of learning, aren't they? You're not the villain here, although I will note that the soundtrack you inflicted on that room likely had a lot of extra casualties other than you and that old lady. And look, it can be really tough if you're stuck in any given situation next to some screaming kids, I know. Most of us just have the decency to shut up and trust that the parents aren't exactly having a great time of it either. Grit your teeth, hope for the sake of everyone, especially the baby, that the kids feel better soon and get through it together. This opinionated lady can thank her lucky stars that it ended 10 minutes later. Honestly, the author was doing everything in her power to make everyone's life easier. It seems like she's perfectly capable of being selfish and just sitting there and reading if need be, so everyone else can thank their lucky stars that she went as far out of her way as she did to accommodate them. Especially given the diagnosis she was no doubt thinking about non-stop. You seem like a good mum and a decent person. Thanks for the story. I just deleted thousands of hours of work from my old job. About 3 years ago, I used to work as a videographer doing social media content for a 7-figure company. I was paid roughly just better than minimum wage and was cranking out, at one point, 50 videos a day. I was freelancing and was on a loose contract. I was desperate for the money. It was an insane amount of work, and however I managed to do it for 6 months is beyond me, especially for how badly I was paid. The office was an incredibly bitter and snide place, and it was clear that management would purposefully stir up drama just to watch the staff fight as a form of entertainment. I kept well away from it, but it was incredibly stressful on top of video work. After about 6 months, I pitched to the higher-ups that my videos were making an insanely positive difference to their sales. I showed them graphs of interactions and direct links to sales on the website via my content and asked for a pay rise. I compared my ideal salary to others in the industry and made a big deal about how it would still be less than I should be paid. However, I still wanted to continue working for them. I was fired hours later for, and I crap you not pulling my weight, as well as not having the desired effect that they wanted on social media. I was fuming and now unemployed. I struggled for months to find any other job. Today, years later, whilst browsing a very old Google Drive account, I found that the company was still using a folder that I'd created and owned. They were mostly active in the files containing templates, adjustment layers, presets, and even video footage, all of which I created. Over 18 people were actively using it daily to continue their social media campaigns. All of this on a cloud service that I was paying monthly for, as I wanted extra space for my work. So, this is my drive and my work. I own it. So I copied the file as a local version for myself, and then I deleted the online version. Tomorrow, they'll wake up with none of their video assets, including things they were currently working on. Screw them? But also, am I the jerk? Well, you got them, author. Honestly, how incompetent do you even have to be to not have the initiative to create your own repositories? Hello, person that we've wronged. Here, let us give you complete power to destroy our operation at the click of a button. Please and thank you. One of those rare moments where mean and stupid just kind of intersect perfectly. You weren't the jerk for kicking them off your own privately owned sharing space, and you could honestly probably come after them legally for using it for so long. I hope that if they inquired about the files that you took, you charged them a hefty consultation fee, because that's honestly the only way to get back at some people like this, through their wallets. But given that they were apparently okay with paying someone minimum wage for what sounds like a massively productive content creation gig, maybe they just got the poor person who replaced you to make another 50 videos. Don't know how they kept finding people to do that, to be honest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for giving the PlayStation 5 that my husband bought to my nephew? I'm a 35-year-old woman and my husband is 37. I discovered the other day that he had bought a PS5 as a gift for himself. But the thing is, he used my money to do so without my permission, using a portion of my emergency savings that he had access to in case of, an emergency. Which I don't believe that being able to get your hands on a new video game console classes as. This led to a huge argument and I took the console away and reboxed it up. I debated on returning it to the shop for money, but I know that my sister has been struggling to find one for my 13-year-old nephew for over a year. So instead, I wrapped it up and took it round to hers and put it under the tree, and quietly explained what it was and what had happened. My sister then gave me the money for it. My husband went ballistic, shouting and demanding I go get it back, which of course I refused to do, telling him as it had been bought with my money, it was my choice what happened to it. He's now sulking and refusing to talk to me and acting like a huge child. For anyone curious about our money situation and why I'm so angry, We each put half of our salary into a communal family fund for the house, bills, groceries, among other things. The other half is ours to play with as we want. My husband always blows through his and never saves a penny. Half of my expendable money goes into savings for emergencies as I'm more realistic. He refused to pay me back as it was a, quote, emergency expense. As an update, I've now emptied the emergency account that he's access to and put it all in my personal account that he doesn't have access to, including the money I got from my sister for the PlayStation 5. Well done on giving your grown-up high school boyfriend a reality shock. I say that only because I can't think of any actual adult that would apparently do this with their spouse's money from the, quote, emergency funds. I feel like this guy is a bit too damn secure in his relationship if he feels entitled to pull stuff like this from his higher-earning spouse. At least it sounds like you've taken measures to try and protect your funds going forward, which is definitely a good thing. But from the sounds of it, it could be another stop on your road to divorce. But then again, if hubby is this dependent on his wife, maybe he has to stay together with you regardless. And maybe this is the wake-up call he needs to either stop spending so recklessly or even better, get a job that pays more so he can contribute more to the household funds. And on a lesser note, buy his own darn PlayStation 5. My manager wouldn't help when we were short-staffed. Then she had to do the work herself at the end of the night. When I was in high school, I had a part-time job working at a local restaurant. One day I came in and was scheduled to wash the dishes. No big deal. I walked into the back and came out to find that the morning shift didn't have a dishwasher, therefore there was a mountain of dishes. No bueno. On top of that, we got slammed that night. As a minor, I was required to take a 30-minute break in order to work my full shift, which was between 4 and 10 p.m., I believe. As I clocked out for my break, I asked my manager if she could have someone cover my position while I was on break to prevent an even worse situation than was already at hand. She responded, "Won't be able to, you'll just have to stay late and finish it." An important thing to keep in mind is that this manager was notoriously lazy and unhelpful. She never lent a helping hand to get things done faster. She'd rather stay 3 hours past close, sitting in the office waiting for us to finish our closing duties, instead of coming out and helping and getting everything done in a timely manner. She was also not very familiar with child labor laws in Ohio. Since I was a minor, not only did I have to take a 30-minute break, I could also not work past 11 p.m. on school nights. So after clocking back in from my break, I resumed washing the mountain of dishes that had accumulated. I took my time and didn't rush to get everything cleaned, but also I wasn't going extremely slow on purpose. 10:59 rolls around and I walk into the office to tell her that I'm leaving. She asked, "Got everything done?" "Nope," I said, "it's Wednesday night. Can't work past 11 p.m. Labor laws." "I left the water turned on for you. There's still a lot left." The look on her face was priceless. I clocked out with the biggest smile on my face, knowing that she was going to have to leave the office and do something for once. I asked another manager the next day to see what time she clocked out. Apparently 1:15 a.m. Perfect. That'll learn her. See, I thought that in hospitality a manager had to kind of help out with day-to-day work a bit, actually quite a lot, to keep the costs of the business actually working out. Hospitality is not a high-overhead business. You can't really afford to have administrative staff just sitting around and doing nothing. Maybe you should be able to if they're competent, but the reality is that most restaurants just don't make that much if they're not chain brands. So either this manager was family to the operators or was doing one heck of a slick job in covering up her complete inaction during her job, and the restaurant was maybe not doing so well as a result. Hopefully on your future shifts, this motivated her to actually lend a fricking hand out of self-interest so that she could get off on time. Then again, knowing this sort of lazy jerk, maybe she also just made sure you guys were never scheduled onto the same shift again so that she didn't have to deal with this problem. Honestly, either situation would be a win on your books. Entitled ex-friend is upset at me for getting a job in our field. Dave, who's 35, and me, 25, met in an advanced math class at community college 3 years ago. I'd finished my bachelor's degree and needed to complete a couple of extra classes to prep for my master's program in computer sciences. Dave, as he came to share, had spent ages 18 to 28 playing video games in his childhood bedroom. And from 29 to 35, he had had an awakening and decided to start doing something with his life. He planned on getting his bachelor's in computer sciences, but had somehow managed to spend more than 6 years taking part-time classes at the community college. The guy was 35 and had never had a job outside of one summer stocking at a grocery store a decade ago. He had never paid rent in his life either. When we met in that math class, despite his past, I was impressed with Dave for trying to turn his life around. This guy was smart, but over time I started seeing another side of him. Dave constantly complains about his parents, the same parents who pay his every expense, including a reloadable Starbucks card and an annual Disneyland membership, the latter of which he uses 2 to 3 times a week. Anytime I ever offered to help Dave get a good starting job in IT or computer sciences, he'd laugh and say, I couldn't possibly work even part-time with my academic schedule, or $30 an hour? I'll be making 3 times that when I finish my degree. What makes him think that? His 3 months of job market experience from 2005? At the same time, he always went around saying he knew more than his professors did. He should just teach the class. He'd tell everyone that he's a computer scientist and a, quote, true academic. Well, this summer I got an internship turned job at a major tech and entertainment company. I'm on track to finish my master's next year. The sad thing is, my friendship with Dave was over within 2 months of me getting this internship. He started calling me a sellout and saying things like working students didn't actually care about understanding computer science. They just lied and cheated to get through classes. Random bullcrap like that. When I told him that wasn't true and that lots of students work, his response was to ignore me for a week and then write a 4-page letter saying I don't understand how hard he has it. The entitlement is mind-blowing. For a near middle-aged man who's never supported himself, to tell someone who worked their way through most of college in retail and as a maid, and who now works full-time and mentors kids in STEM, while finishing a second degree, that she doesn't appreciate how hard he has it. Mind blown. I hope he's still having a good time spending 40 hours a week studying and being a, quote, computer scientist at Starbucks. In short, my 35-year-old friend had never worked or paid rent in his life, but thinks he's better than working students and is a true academic. Ish. You know what? I'm not sure Dave will ever finish that computer sciences course. Assuming you're willing to put in the work to turn your life around, there's definitely nothing wrong with doing so in your mid-30s, but refusing genuine work offers, the likes of which most of us would be thrilled to get in college, with such arrogance, completely annihilates any sympathy I might have had for Dave. And that was overkill, especially given his parental leech situation, including but not limited to a Starbucks card and an annual Disney pass? Honestly, it sounds like Dave takes in more money from his folks annually at 35 than a lot of adults do in their entire lives once they leave home. Hey, Dave's parents, if you're listening and want a replacement son, I will fill the gap and I'll only take the Disneyland pass. And I'll cook and clean and everything. Pick me, please. I have a job too. God damn it, Dave. Pull your crap together and stop taking your sweet, sweet ride for granted. Want me to work my interview? Okay, will do. As a disclaimer, nothing in this post is legal advice. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. Please do not take legal advice from internet randos. As a background, I mostly work in a niche area of law called discovery. Basically, when someone starts a legal proceeding, each party gets to ask other parties for certain documents relevant to the case. Sometimes parties refuse to produce certain documents because of reasons like attorney-client privilege. I argue why my client's documents are properly withheld or the other side's documents are improperly withheld. One day, I see a job board post from a local law firm looking for a research writing position with required experience in discovery disputes. This raises a red flag for 2 reasons. First, local law firms normally do not need to hire full-time research and writing people because more than 95% of that firm's cases are very similar. Like personal injury firm normally only handles personal injury cases, so keeping a full-time researcher isn't worthwhile when all of your cases are basically the same. When these local firms need something researched, they either just do it themselves or pay someone else for a few hours of work. Second, this local firm hired a friend of mine by telling them, start here, work hard, and move up to senior associate in a few years, before promptly letting them go after a few busy months. I go ahead and I send my resume over and I get scheduled for an interview pretty quickly. During the interview, I give them a fairly high salary ask which they agreed to almost instantly. So, it's a trap for sure. Then the partner hits me with the following. We ask all candidates to provide a writing sample before the final interview. I say, sure thing, I thought I attached one to the application, but let me grab my phone and double check. Oh no, not that writing sample, that's too generic for evaluation. Here's a legal question that we want you to research. I say, I see. Well, I'm more than happy to do that at an hourly rate. It should be fairly quick work. No other candidate has asked us for a writing sample compensation, and this makes it seem like you won't be a team player. If you aren't interested in the position, just tell us. I say, let me think about it. So I go home and search a couple of local court dockets, and wouldn't you know it, this firm is involved in a case with a hearing set on exactly the discovery question they want me to produce a free writing sample on. I send an email back saying, sure thing, I'll make the writing sample, as long as it guarantees consideration for the writing and research position. They say, yes. I write a fantastic memo and send it in. A few weeks go by and I email asking for an update on the final interview. No response. Then I check that court docket and wouldn't you know it, they straight up copy-pasted parts of my memo in the response. So I send a demand letter for payment and fees. No response. I file a lawsuit for fraud. Oh baby, then I got a response. A frothy, salty response. I got called some names. They went on and on about how I was going to lose, and after I lost, how they were going to countersue me. So I said, sounds good, I can't wait to lose. I guess you did hire a full-time research and writing attorney. I mean, it would be like Babytown Frolics easy to win if you never hired for that position. Actually, it would be even easier if you never even had a final interview for the spot. I'm sure you aren't that dumb, though. I got the check 30 days later. You'd kind of assume that a company that deals in law wouldn't try to pull this kind of crap out of self-interest if nothing else. This is the kind of thing that we normally see in stories about shady restaurants that are just morons with no idea of what they're getting into, not actual people who work in the field that they're getting into trouble in. Did anyone at this company actually have a gosh diddly darn law degree? Because I don't have one, and even I can see that shortchanging lawyers is a great way to make your life really, really expensive. Maybe this is just a bunch of people with phony law degrees just running a really elaborate scheme and getting all of their case research done this way. In any case, they're a bunch of complete idiots as well as hilariously inept in their own field, and they really deserve to have this kind of thing shut down well before it ever became a problem with you. His ex-girlfriend cheated, but says he is her baby's father. And now she's dating his sister? My son, who's 18, has found out that one of his ex-girlfriends is 8 months pregnant. He knows nothing of the sort of her being pregnant until now, and he's just expected to accept everything with no questions asked. My daughter, who's 20, is good friends with this girl and knew about her pregnancy, but said nothing to us because her friend asked her not to. My son was head over heels for this lady. But she ended up breaking his heart by cheating on him and was very needy and manipulative. He spent a lot of money on her because she'd ask for gifts that my son couldn't even afford, and she'd convince him to use one of my credit cards to achieve them. My daughter, who isn't currently living with us and is actually rooming with this girl by her college, is also being manipulated by her and thinks she only does good and doesn't believe that she convinced her brother to use my credit card or that she even cheated. She showed up with my son's ex-girlfriend at my door to help her tell us that she's pregnant. When I saw her there at my door, visually pregnant, I knew she was going to be saying that my son was the father of her child, and I immediately said that my son will not be putting in any money or time until there's a paternity test proving that it is his child. My son actually backed me up and agreed. My daughter was horrified by my comment and accused me of encouraging him to be a deadbeat father and was upset that I didn't even give them a chance to explain themselves. My son's ex started crying, saying that you always assume the worst of me and that she went 8 months of pregnancy alone and the least we could do is ensure that she's taken care of for the betterment of his child. I do agree that if this is his child, we're going to ensure that she's doing well to ensure baby is doing well. But I don't want my son to be involved with her only to get his heart broken again and only to find out that the child isn't his. Am I the jerk here? As a quick update, my daughter and I spoke on the phone and I explained to her that if the baby really is his, then the text will only lock in his responsibility for the baby. and that there's no way I'd ever encourage my son to abandon any of my grandchildren. My daughter finally agreed that the test would be beneficial and told me she'd call back later. I ended up getting a text back instead of a call, asking if they could come over to talk, which I agreed to. And when they came over, my son's ex admitted to not actually knowing who the father was, and that she had been in a relationship with multiple guys, which is why she took so long telling my son, because she was trying to figure out who's the father of her child. But she's now certain it's my son. She agreed to do the paternity test as soon as we were able to do one on condition that I pay for it. One other thing I found out is that my daughter and my son's ex have actually developed a romantic relationship, which is beyond shocking to me. I mean, it explains why she's been sticking up for my son's ex as much as she's been doing, but it's just not something I thought my daughter would ever do. I mean, that's her brother's ex, someone who breaks his heart. It's just not something I can understand. I'll always love my daughter, but it just hurts me seeing my son feeling really hurt by this whole situation. So, am I in the wrong here? Well, this is just damn messy. You and your son absolutely aren't in the wrong for demanding that she prove whether it's his. It's only right. I don't know if your daughter would be okay with raising the kid as well into the bargain if she and the ex are romantically involved. That would be a really strange family situation. And yes, if the paternity test does come back positive, then your son absolutely needs to do his part and at least pay child support. Which sucks, being so young, and given how awfully his girlfriend has seemingly treated him and everyone else she's involved with. Sure, I'll keep my meals under $30 as per the policy. I'll make sure it's $30 every single time. For context, this was written in 2021. I do a lot of fly-in, fly-out travel for my job. Usually I'm so busy with work while on site or I'm stationed somewhere with food options I don't want to waste my calories on, and I don't eat anything the whole day or I just buy a coffee. Our employee expenses policy at work is $30 a day, which is mostly fine. But there are some high cost of living cities and sometimes my meals go above that policy, because there aren't many options, especially if I want to eat healthy, which is important when you're constantly on the road. Plus, so many airports have completely shut down their food courts and haven't reopened them yet, so there's hardly any options but fast food. So I submit my expenses one month and I've gone $1.50 over the daily limit, because I treated myself to a coffee that morning as well as a lunch, because I was tired after the god-awful early flight that I had to take. The company had recently changed their policy, and now a different set of people are approving expenses. The previous people didn't mind going over by a few bucks because it balances out with trips where I didn't eat anything. But this new group are absolute sticklers and rejected the expense, citing I was over the daily limit. I tried to argue that I had 10 other visits that month in which I didn't eat a single thing, but they still weren't budging. It really left a sour taste in my mouth. Now, every single visit, I force myself to spend as close to $30 as I can, because screw them. My husband is happy because it means I now bring back slightly squished but free food for him. I feel bad for wasting food, but often I just buy a meal and eat a few bites and throw it in the bin. However, the expense policy is $30 a day, and by gosh, I'm going to stick to it now. While in the past I might have billed $100 for the entire month because I didn't bother to eat, I'm now billing twice or 3 times that. I also used to push myself to keep working all day, but now I religiously take my 30 minutes to go and buy some food, so that's 30 less minutes of work they're getting from me as well. Am I the jerk? There you go, another productive and cost-saving employee driven to being a bitter and expensive one. In this case, actually as dedicated as possible to spending as much of the company's time and money just to spite them. Well done, penny-pinching bosses, you've done it again. All because you just couldn't let your hard-working staff member have a cup of coffee. What will you think of next? I honestly can't see myself going to all that trouble just to get back at someone, but it's hard to classify the author as a jerk when she's literally just taking something she's entitled to under company policy on a day-to-day basis. I don't know how much pressure the expenses people were under to keep staff on budget. Honestly, if they were being pushed on by people from above, I can't really be too angry at them either. But if they just decided that screwing a good employee out of $30 for going $1 over their budget was the hill that they wanted to die on their own initiative? Not cool. And massive jerks. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for outing my ex as gay to get his mother off my back? It's a long and sucky story, but my soon-to-be ex-husband is gay and hid that from me. I found out because I caught him cheating and he as much as admitted that he knew he wasn't attracted to me that way, but he wanted kids and a, quote, normal life. I don't really care that he's gay, but I'll never forgive him for leading me on so he could use me to have kids. So it's over. End of story. The problem is that his family are fundamentalist nutjobs except for a few members, and his mother is the interfering mother-in-law from hell. Not being related to her anymore is another big plus for me leaving. His family doesn't believe in divorce, so under the guise of picking up some paperwork and other items I'd found that were my ex's, she cornered me about how I'm being childish, and marriage is about commitment, forgiveness, and working through problems. It became apparent that my ex didn't tell his family that he cheated. He told his mum that I was divorcing him because we weren't doing the deed often enough for me. I tried to be patient and explained that he had cheated and that's why I wasn't going to go into greater detail, because I know how his parents are and it's none of their business. The mother-in-law's advice, I kid you not, was that men are just that way, and if I wanted to do the deed more and for him to not stray, I should make myself more attractive to my husband and be a better wife. At that point, I lost the plot completely. It had been a sad and hard day already, and that was the last straw. Here's where I might be the jerk. I told her that the only thing that would make me more attractive to my ex would be a sex change operation, and that I hoped he and his boyfriend adopted her some grandchildren so she could finally shut the heck up about it. It wasn't my finest moment, but she just hit the worst and most raw nerve that she could have, and I exploded. It's evidently turned into a huge family drama. He's probably going to be disowned, and my ex called sobbing that I've ruined his life out of spite. I don't really know how to feel about it. I do feel bad for him and that his parents are such awful people, and there were just no good outcomes for him, but I also feel like he made his own bed here too. To clarify a couple of things. 1. There was almost no chance of violence. His family are fundies, but they're not the violent sort. They're more of the Mormon shunning type. One of his cousins came out of the closet and left the church, and after the initial protests, they all just kind of stopped talking to him, and basically treated him as if he were dead until he was ready to repent or whatever. They're passive-aggressive, repressed, and weird as all get out, but the chances of anyone physically hurting him are extremely low, I think. He's not financially dependent on them, and has more than a decent job, so he can support himself easily if they kick him out. And 2, he's known that he was gay since before me, so this wasn't a new discovery or an admission to himself. He has a boyfriend that he's been dating since 6 months before we were married. I went through his computer after catching them in the act and kicking him out, and I found messenger logs and other evidence going back to before he started dating me. He literally set this up so he could have the nice Mormon family on the surface to keep his family happy. That's it. He never loved me at all. I was just the first girl to express a sustained interest. As an update, Lord knows I would have had a hard time believing this could happen to me before it happened. But some folks have asked how things were going, and I don't have a lot of places to talk openly about what's happening for obvious reasons. So I thought this might be a good way to get some stuff off my head and update those who wanted to know at the same time. I'm grateful for all the different opinions, by the way. I'm so conflicted about the situation myself, it helps to see other people's reasoning and values on the subject. I feel like I can't trust my mind right now, and writing this out and reading responses has helped me make some peace and move on. I've finally gotten radio silence from my ex's immediate family after the incident with the mother-in-law, so that's a relief. I work at the same place with a couple of his extended family members, so I still have to see them, but they haven't brought it up. They all know to contact me only through my lawyer now, and everything big that belongs to my ex has been passed on already, so anything else can be forwarded through the legal office now. I shouldn't have to interact directly with them, but it's hard to avoid people forever in a small town. My ex tried to break into the house the day that I posted the story while I was at work, and I pressed charges. I don't know how that's going to shake out or why he's doing this, when it can only get him into worse trouble, but I'm letting my lawyer and the police handle it. And I'm staying with my parents for a little while until I feel safer. I don't know what's happened between him and his family, and I don't want to try and find out. My ex, and I guess his family, before the fight with the mother-in-law, spread rumors about me, and it's made living in this small town very hard. It's a tiny community, and people treat me very differently now. The local stake president has been kind, and after being told about the cheating, with no mention of orientation, he said he'd try to help out with the rumors. I don't want to leave the area, but I'm thinking that I may need to, at least for a while, until the legal stuff is over. My lawyer and I have decided to go for annulment, since that will take less time and be harder to fight in this case. Hopefully, the ex won't contest it. I'm glad that we never combined finances. There won't be too many joint assets to sort out. I'll be okay financially still. This could have been much worse if I was a stay-at-home mum or something. I'm going to start therapy soon. I was thinking about it anyway, even before this all came out, because I've been feeling depressed over how things were working in my marriage for a while. I don't want to lose any more of myself and my time than I already have, and I hope one day I'll feel good enough to start dating again. Right now, I don't know. Even thinking about it hurts. A couple of things that I wanted to comment on from responses to the post. I am a Mormon, although an inactive one for much of my life. I don't want the entire Latter-day Saints church to be painted with this brush. My ex and his family aren't typical, though I know there are people like that out there. Please don't generalize about gay people because of this story either. There are LGBTQ people close to my heart, and they would never do this to anyone. I don't believe that outing people is generally okay, or I wouldn't feel so bad about all of this. My ex's family set this up with their intolerance. I wish none of it had happened for me and for him too. Takeaway, I guess, is don't out people if you can possibly avoid it, even if some people see it as justified in the circumstances. It's not good and it doesn't feel good. My name's a little clearer and I'm not being bothered directly by his family anymore, but that's it. Now I get to figure out the next step. This is another really, really messy one, but I think the author's final words kind of summarize the best advice anyone can give. Outing people takes what should be a very personal and private thing out of their hands, and in some cases can put their life in very real danger. That said, we don't know how long the mother would have kept on forcing her way into this woman's life if she hadn't explained that part of her husband's infidelity. In spite of him being at fault here, I do feel bad for the man. He was clearly under a great deal of pressure to conform, and by the sounds of this family and community, he may have had his social life completely upended. If he has a decent, qualified job, it's easy enough to say that he can just go and work elsewhere with his boyfriend, but just having to up and leave the life you've always known is a really raw deal. So I'm going to say that there are a few jerks here, but the real villain is religious fundamentalism. Also, the mother sucks. Imagine hearing that a female family member had been cheated on and telling her to just do more to make her man not cheat as often. It's so twisted. Would I be the jerk if I refused to go to my sister's wedding because I can't bring my girlfriend as my plus one? So I'm a lesbian and I've been with my girlfriend for almost 2 years now. My family, including my sister, are all fine with me being gay and they're supportive of my relationship. However, her fiancé comes from a very regressive and religious family, and while he himself is fine, his extended family is very traditional and very anti-gay. My sister gave me my invitation in person instead of mailing it, and explained that I wasn't getting a plus one because having a gay couple at the wedding would likely end up causing lots of drama with this side of the family. All my other siblings have plus ones and are welcome to bring their hetero partners. I understand where she's coming from, but it still feels like such a slap in the face. I'm not going to try and force her to give me a plus one, but I'm seriously considering not going. I love my sister, but I'm not comfortable spending a whole day alone, while my other siblings are allowed to bring their partners, just because my sister wants to cater to a bunch of bigots. I haven't said anything to anyone yet, but if I do stay home, would I be the jerk? Well, it's their wedding and their choice, of course, but I still say that the happy couple are more likely the jerks in this case for not just telling the family that there are people from all walks of life at the wedding and that if they want to come, they need to set aside their shallow world views. And your sister and brother-in-law will be even bigger jerks if they hold it against you for not coming. Yeah, let's just say that it will be a mark against them if they accept your non-attendance on the issue, but they'll be huge flaming pieces of crap if they simultaneously expect you to come, but don't let you bring the person you love. It's a rough one, and I hope that your family can get through it without undue drama. Personally, I'm of the view that they just tell the in-laws to swallow their damn bigotry for one day. Am I the jerk for returning the money my husband took from my family for attending our cookout? For context, my husband comes from a wealthy family, and he himself has inherited a number of assets from his relatives. One of them is this huge house where we live right now, with a pool and a huge backyard with lots of features. We decided to host our first cookout after we got married, 7 months ago, and we invited both his and my family. That was on Friday. Both families came and we had lots of fun, then everyone went home later. I then got a phone call from my mum and she didn't sound okay. She asked whether or not my family took money from his family before they attended the cookout. I was confused and I asked what she was talking about, and she told me that my husband charged every single person from my side of the family who attended the event $25. I was utterly shocked and very angry and felt like this legitimately damaged my relationship with most of my family, because almost all of them came over. Not just that, but he got $275 from them. I was so livid I hung up the phone and confronted him immediately. He told me my family got to enjoy the space and view and said that I should think of it as a resort cookout, since his house has lots of luxuries. I told him it was a horrible thing for him to do, and what made it worse is the fact that his family didn't pay like mine had to. He laughed and then reminded me that his family gave him this house. I demanded he give the money back, but he said no, and that he won't even give it to me since the house is technically his. I went and took the money and gave everyone who paid their money back with a sincere apology from me. My husband found out and flipped out at me, calling what I did an overstep and disrespectful. I told him he shouldn't have taken money from my family for being guests at our house, but he corrected me saying it's his house and said that he'd bet my family had never got to attend a cookout at a house like this, and that it was just $25, but I disrespected him and went behind his back and took money that wasn't mine. We stopped talking after this argument and he keeps venting to his mum about me taking his money that he earned his own way. Is he a jerk? Have no fear, jerky husband is indeed here. In fact, maybe you should have fear because of that. What a piece of crap. It's just a grubby, classless move to try and run a business out of your family that way. Look, if you're not doing all that well financially, you can for sure let people know beforehand that a financial contribution would be nice. But throwing this sort of event and concealing the fact that people have to pay until after the fact is just so gross. And then he doubles down with his weird twisted logic that they should pay for the privilege of being in your way nicer house than their poor butts could ever afford. This guy really is kind of human garbage, and I can't see how you'd live with him. My egomaniac boss humiliates me, so I expose how stupid she really is. This happened many years ago, and despite that, after all this time, it still makes me chuckle. When I was around 19, I was working as a receptionist, front of house at a solicitor's office. It was quite small, but very successful. 4 partners. The main one was the lady it was named after, who was kind of fierce in a Judge Judy sort of way, so I'll call her Judy. A new solicitor we'll call Anna joined the team. We had a conveyancing, a personal injury, financial and criminal department solicitor, and she'd be working family law, and her specialty and main focus would be helping domestic violence victims. At this time, all of those clients were women. She was awesome at her job. I saw so many victims of domestic mistreatment while they waited in reception, and because they were so stressed and worried, they'd sometimes just tell me their life stories while they waited. I did my best to comfort them. Sometimes they'd have to wait an hour or longer if something else was happening. Anna advocated hard for these women. Restraining orders, emergency hearings, police interviews, protection, arranging safe houses, custody of children. I really admired her and still do now. Those women needed her. The thing about Anna was she was extremely posh, well-educated. She spoke better than the characters on Downton Abbey, or even the Queen, but she was also very opinionated and she swore a lot. Hearing her talk about one of the husbands of a battered woman, what an absolute twitting little C-word, in a voice that sounds similar to the Queen made us giggle, but she reined it in and was mostly professional in front of clients. Most of my job was filing, typing, voice dictation statements, and logging calls from women with restraining orders who'd been contacted by their ex-partners. So I'd get a lot of calls. "Hi Sabrina, he called me at 8:15 a.m. and 10 a.m. today, also an email at 9 p.m. through his mother's account." Things like that. It all had to be logged and reported for the court files. I got so many of these calls I'd recognize each by voice, and this will be important later. After she'd been there for maybe a month, she was featured in an article that put the office in a very good light. The article highlighted her important work in keeping these people safe. We celebrated with her. But it went to her head, and she became arrogant and snappy with little put-downs here and there to the secretaries and other workers. She became pretty full of herself, getting snarky and barking out "coffee" to me as soon as she walked inside. I let it go. She was stressed and doing something important. As it was so long ago, most documents had to be faxed. Her office was 2 doors away from reception. She'd let me know if she was expecting something important, and I would drop everything to rush the documents to her. Waiting for legal stuff, police reports, or restraining orders could quite literally be a life and death situation for the clients. Sure enough, a restraining order document came through for a female client who was sitting with Anna in her office. This client was crying, looked like she'd had no sleep, and her story was horrendous. I had to type up some statements of hers. I felt desperately sorry for her. The rule was, if something important came through, I had to rush and interrupt any client meeting. The papers came through and I rushed to the office and handed them to Anna and left. Moments later, Anna was in reception screeching at me because the timestamp said it was delivered a whole hour earlier. I was confused as I'd given it to her the moment it came through. She wouldn't stop yelling that I'd put this woman's life in jeopardy over my laziness and stupidity, and I should be fired. She made so much noise that Judy came out of her office to listen. Remember, Judy is the founder of the company. Judy's face gave away absolutely nothing, and afterwards she quietly just said, "Please make sure to give the documents quickly in future to avoid any more problems." It happened again. An 8 or so page document came through for that same client who was in there with her. I rushed to her office, handed them to her, and went to leave. Before I could, Anna started yelling at me again. "This was an hour ago. What the frick, Sabina? What the frick did I tell you?" This time she started swearing and I couldn't get a word in, and all of this in front of the poor client, who looked wildly uncomfortable. Judy came to the door again and again, her face gave away nothing, and she asked me to come with her. She asked if there was a problem. I explained and she thanked me. Anna then followed us out and started yelling at me that I had no respect or kindness in my heart for these women, and I was lazy, utterly incompetent, and ridiculously not right in the head. I went and cried in the toilets. Over the next few days, the same client came in. Things had escalated further and had hit the newspapers. It was an awful case. So the 4 partners, along with Anna, were meeting with her in the same office. I went back in to give a file to one of the clients there, and Anna piped up, "Was this from an hour ago too? There seems to be a pattern here." Again, in front of the client and her 4 bosses. It didn't bother me this time though. I'd had one of those moments in bed the night before, the moment where your eyes snap open while you're trying to sleep, and you have that bingo realization moment. So I calmly just said, the reason why the documents appeared to be an hour late was because the clocks have changed for daylight savings time. I should have realized that when the ink was still not dry as I handed them to you. Sure enough, the documents on her desk yesterday were a little smudged. The fax machine was old and didn't update the time. My little victory moment was spoiled because as I was leaving the office, I tripped over my own foot and knocked my head on the doorframe, giving Anna a good laugh. The next day, a staff meeting was called about professionalism in the office. The client who witnessed Anna's meltdown had approached Judy. She was really upset to see Anna treat the staff that way, and her swearing had frightened her. Judy was very clear that this was not acceptable. The woman had already heard enough yelling and swearing for a lifetime. Anna begrudgingly apologized to me, and I shrugged it off. Judy also apologized privately for not stepping in when she should have. No problem. My malicious compliance was next. Every single call I had to log instead of the main list I used on the computer from the women I wrote on an individual post-it. So I'd be in and out of her office sometimes 10 times an hour. Her desk was flooded with post-its that just said 10 a.m. call from husband to client X. She was annoyed, but this is what she'd asked for. I wasted a lot of post-it notes. The next bit got a little strange. A lady who was in a shelter or safe house with her daughter called and said she was reconciling with her husband and she wants to drop the case completely and didn't want to be contacted again. This happens. Sometimes these poor victims go back when it gets too much. This was a particularly brutal case. She had been attacked really badly. I told Anna straight away, who said she'd call her in a few days, because calling them right then might jeopardize her safety if he was there. And I said, no, call the police. Anna asked why, and I said it wasn't her on the phone. I recognize her voice every time she calls, and it wasn't her. We called for a welfare check, and sure enough, her husband had taken her forcefully back home and had his older daughter call the office pretending to be her. He was arrested. When it all worked out well and the lady was again in a much better safe house, Anna gifted me a bottle of wine and a thank you card, and then asked me to stop with the post-its and that the message was received. She also apologized again, properly this time. Sorry for the long post. Moral of the story is don't treat people like crap even if your intentions are pure and trying to help someone. We can all just be kinder. As a late update, I think I didn't make it clear that I'm not in that field anymore. It was a job I took after I dropped out of college. I left after having my first son and then started working safeguarding one-on-one support at a school. The nice comments really made me smile though, so thank you so much. In short, I was treated badly and belittled in front of a client, and I cried in the toilets. I bombarded my boss Anna with individual updates and progress updates on post-it notes, so she'd see what I was handling minute by minute. Her office was flooded with yellow post-it notes, and we handled the situation afterwards together. We ended up working together well. Well, Anna was the jerk, but one with some reasons and accountability, so I say that we forgive her. She could have done a better job at apologizing the first time, but she did apologize, which is more than we get in a lot of these stories. She was also doing a very important and valuable service for a lot of people, and that can't be overlooked either. I can see why it could be important to get that sort of correspondence as quickly as it comes in, given that up-to-date information could in this case secure the best possible outcomes for the victims, and in some cases even save their lives. So yes, Anna was the jerk in this particular case, but I'd say that both her and the author are forces for good. There are bad people and there are hard people, and Anna seems like the latter. The game of malicious compliance with tons of individual updates is something that we've seen a lot in our stories, and is a real winner for getting these fussy bosses off your backs when they see the reality of what they're asking for. Also, the bottle of wine was a classy touch. Well done, Anna. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. CEO almost fired me on the spot. So I worked at tech support for a big German retailer, and the CEO's laptop needed some updates on several programs because we weren't allowed to push that remotely on him. It was his own rule. I go into his office and he was already annoyed about the fact that it was going to take longer than 2 seconds. So he said he was going on a break. I do the thing and left. It took me 30 seconds. I get a call from him 5 minutes later. You fricked up my computer. My screen is flashing and I can't press anything. Get in here now. Sweat pouring down my back as I took the elevator and came back in. What the frick did you do? I can't do crap here without you guys messing up every tiny thing. I swear I'm getting a whole new department if this shizer ever happens again. I looked, screen flashing. I couldn't even get to reboot. Panic intensified as I looked over to his side of the desk and saw a remote numpad with a folder on the enter key. I pushed the folder off the thing and couldn't hide the grin on my face. This didn't happen, okay? Don't tell anyone downstairs. Telling everyone downstairs was the first thing I did. Condescending effer. Slow clap for your crappy boss and his self-inflicted issues. He absolutely deserved to be laughed at behind his back by everyone in the company, so well done to the author. This guy really had a lot of bottled up rage to just claim he was going to go full fire and fury on your entire department, huh? What are you really angry about, boss man? And I know that it's not really the IT department because clearly you're absolutely computer illiterate. Take some time, meditate, and apologize to the presumable scores of both your own employees and random wait staff that you've screamed at, and do better. Face masks are apparently scarier than COVID-19. I finally get to write my own encounter. This happened today. I live in a small town in Scotland and went on my weekly shop to a supermarket. Since the virus has hit this country pretty hard, I try to wear a face mask and gloves each time I go out. I mean, any of us could be a carrier with no symptoms, and there are a lot of elderly people in this village. I was waiting for the green man, and there was a mother there with her child. I didn't pay attention to them at first, and it took me a second to realize the mum had started to have a go at me. Eventually I heard, "Excuse me?" So I said, "Sorry, can I help you?" She said, "Yes, take your bloody mask off. It's not going to help you anyway." I said, no, I won't. Have a good day, lady." I proceeded to walk away to find another crosswalk. I hate confrontations and crazy people make me nervous. She continued, "Do you not think at all about how those masks are scaring the children? My son is terrified of you. Who knows what trauma you've caused? It's also illegal to walk around with a covered face. People need to be able to identify you." By the way, the little boy didn't seem bothered whatsoever. She tried to argue more, walking almost next to me, but I cut her off. "Lady, please keep your distance. Excuse me for living with someone who's in a risk group. I find it more terrifying to lose a loved one. I bet you wouldn't want that either." I crossed the road quickly to get rid of her so she can't follow me with her spawn. She shouted more angry crap at me, but I hardly understood nor heard her anymore. I should have been wittier, but that's all I could muster in a shock that someone could get so angry because of protective gear. Good riddance. What would you have said to the lady? I should also add that I wear the mask because I have allergies, and with all the pollen going around, it's super inconvenient and uncomfortable to try not to sneeze and cough all the time. I believe that lady needs to be told to just F the F off and mind her own damn business. I've never had to do a Scottish Karen before, so that was interesting at least. The anti-mask crowd are just so darn moronic. I know that this comes several years into that conversation, but for the sake of this story, can't we all agree that if you don't want to wear one when it's not compulsory, fine. You do you, take that gamble, and I hope it goes well for you. But if you're actually going to go bat-crap crazy on someone else for wearing one, especially when they have very valid concerns about the people around them and their compromised immune systems, I really can't see how you would imagine that you were on the right side of things. Then again, introspection has never been these people's strong suit. Keep your stupidity to yourselves. Keep reporting us, because you set your tent up too close, and you're going to have a bad night. Every summer from May until the end of September, my family, hubby, kid, and me, and 2 other families, one with 2 kids and one with no kids, all go camping about every other weekend or so. We always have a great time together. We camp close to the river so the kids can swim and the guys can fish. There are small rapids close by that we walk down to and float back to camp during the day. At night, we build a bonfire and the adults sit around talking and have a few drinks, while the kids pile up in a tent to hang out or go exploring close by with flashlights to see what is out at night. We always put our tents close together, but as far away from the edges of the campsite as possible so we can have some privacy and don't disturb the other campers. The campground rules state that quiet time runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We've been going on these trips for several years and never had any problems or issues with other campers or campground staff. Over this past summer, we were camping and someone pulls into the campsite next to ours pretty late, maybe 7 or 8 p.m., but set their tent up on our part of the site and immediately went into their tent. They had a kayak on their vehicle, and we assumed they were going to have an early morning. So we didn't say anything to them about it since it was late, dark, and we didn't think it was a big deal. Fast forward to 10:05, and someone from the front desk comes to our site and tells us they had a noise complaint about our site. The guy said the staff making rounds didn't hear us or feel we were being loud, but since they had someone call up, they had to come and talk to us. We apologized for any issues we might have caused and agreed to be quieter in case we were disturbing anyone. Maybe half an hour later, the guy comes back and says they had another call and asks us if we heard any other people because he couldn't hear us until he got past our tents and thought maybe the complainer was accusing the wrong site. We kind of look around because we haven't heard anyone else. There's a few other sites with people sitting around fires, but we hadn't heard anyone. However, as we're glancing around, I noticed that our site neighbor is peeking out their tent at us, talking to the groundskeeper. When he saw me looking, he quickly ducked back into his tent. his tent on our site and basically dry humping our tents, if you recall, which is probably why he could hear us so easily. After the groundskeeper left, I decided to look up the campground rules. There was nothing about lights out, just quiet time. So I took one of our bright shop lights and moved it as close as possible to their tent, turned it on and left it shining like a spotlight on their tent all night long. The next morning when we all got up, they were gone. We were there for 5 more days with absolutely no issues. Did I go too far? Am I the jerk? Well, there's our jerk vigilante for the video right there. I mean, yeah, you inflicted problems, but only because there was a much more unreasonable person doing the same to you. So no harm, no foul, I'd say. You didn't go above what they were doing in terms of spitefulness, and maybe they can just invest in some whisper-proof earplugs for next time. I kinda think that some people who go out camping or staying in hostels and the like just don't seem to contemplate that there will be other humans there existing with the noises that go along with that. And you can complain if they are being loud, but it doesn't really seem like this group was doing that. You have the testimonials of the people around you to show that you weren't being rude or inconsiderate, so I say go out into the world with your head held high and your spotlights set to jerk repellent mode. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that I'll no longer give her my breast milk? I had a stillbirth 5 weeks ago. My sister gave birth to a healthy baby boy 4 weeks ago. After my event, I was producing milk and pumping, and my sister couldn't breastfeed after her son was born. Formula shortage was awful, and I was literally throwing my milk away. So I offered it to my sister, and she gladly accepted. I was advised by my doctors to pump for 3 weeks after my event to prevent problems for me, and then stop, otherwise I'd just keep producing milk. Due to the formula shortage, I've been pumping for 5 weeks now to give the milk to my sister. Now that there is more formula in stock and she's been able to go buy it, I told her I'll stop pumping. She told me her son has stomach problems after the formula and asked me to keep pumping. I told her I emotionally can't handle it any longer. She said I'm being selfish and she already has to feed her son by bottle because she at first suggested that I'd just nurse him for his daily feedings at least. We live next door and I'd refused that. I told her I'm sorry and I can pump a few more days so she can put some in the freezer and have some backup until she finds a better formula for her son, but she said breast milk is healthiest and I should just help her out. She called me a selfish jerk and said that I'm the embodiment of misery loves company. My mother feels I should help my own sister out. My husband said my sister was way out of line. I feel really awful because I could still help her out and I know she needs it. What I find very impressive about this particular issue is how objectively the author has posed their problem, barely going into detail about how you were doing during one of the most heartbreaking experiences I'm sure that some people can go through in their lives. And you were being incredibly kind during this ordeal, and kept going with it longer than you had to. So well done on laying the situation out as neutrally as you possibly could, but with all that in mind, you're not the jerk here. Your sister is no doubt having a rough time as a first-time mother, but she should be able to see that you also need to do whatever you need to take care of yourself. And being a milk factory for her and her son was a very kind thing to do, but it just can't go on forever. It's a delicate situation to talk about, as you're likely aware, and I hope you can come out of it with her understanding. The jealous neighbors of my house thought they spiritually owned it, so they kept breaking in. My husband and I bought our house back in the 70s. To call it a fixer-upper would be kind. It had been on the market for over a year, and we were the first to even look at it closer than a drive-by. But by the end of the year living there, we'd done a ton of work, and the place was starting to look great. Even the neighbors commented on how great the house and yard looked. It's a wonder what new siding and grass seed does. One summer day, I was hanging my laundry out when I noticed my neighbor's granddaughter and grandson run across my yard and into my house. I'd never had those kids in my house before, so I was shocked as to why they'd do that. I quickly went in after them. The little boy, I think, was about 4, just a little guy, following his sister around. The sister looked to be about 6 or maybe 7, and she told me that she had permission to be in my house. I asked who gave her this permission, and she said her mum told her she could. I got the kids to follow me, and I took them to their grandparents' house. Their grandmother and mother were on the porch, so I told the women what had happened. The kid's mother confirmed that she had indeed given both children permission to explore my house. I stuttered a moment while asking why. She said, "You bought that house out from under me. We're the ones that should be living there. The kids are sad they don't get to live across the street from their grandparents, and since they should have been living there, I told them they could go in." I looked at the kids. They were pushing and poking each other and giggling. They didn't really seem all that upset to me. I said, "That house was on the market for 14 months, and I've lived here longer than a year. Why are you unhappy about this now?" At this, the woman's mother, who was my neighbor, chimed in. "She was getting ready to ask about that house when you bought it. It wasn't at all fair of you. You stepped in and now my daughter and grandkids can't live near me. They have more of a right than you to be there." I seriously didn't know what to say. I know for a fact that no one else had looked into the purchase of this house until my husband and I bought it. I looked at both women standing in front of me, frowning with their arms crossed, looking defiant, and decided that I really didn't want to engage this kind of goofiness. I asked the mother to please keep her kids out of my house, and I left. I walked home to the sound of both of them loudly yapping their displeasure behind me. This was one of the most unreasonable situations I've ever been in, and I've been in a few. These women made our lives miserable for a while. Every week we had city inspectors dropping in because of anonymous complaints of unauthorized construction. We were building in a couple of rooms, but we had permits for everything. We began keeping the permits in a folder by the door because we had to show them all the time. I think nowadays you have to display them on a wall where everyone can see. 2 different times, police pounded on our door late at night because one of our neighbors, quote, heard screaming and had called them. And there was no screaming, we had been asleep both times. It was the 70s. You could call the cops and not say who you were back then, I guess. It kinda sucked. I had to carry my keys on me at all times when I went outside, because if I left the doors unlocked, these 2 kids would be right in there. They managed to come in several more times that summer, and it was difficult getting them out. It was turning into a nightmare. Just as I was looking into my legal options for getting them to stop, the older couple, the grandparents of the kids who kept coming in, moved to a farm that they'd inherited. They sold their house, and our next new neighbors were great people. In fact, they're still there. The hassles had only lasted a few months, but my gosh, it was intense for a while. Then I found out they'd known they were going to move all along. Those 2 had been bored one day and just decided to hassle me because I was new and they'd already hassled everyone else in the neighborhood. The sale of the house was the only thing they could come up with to have against me. I also found out that our entire neighborhood was glad to see them go. Now, before I get reprimanded for not calling the police, believe me when I say that back then you did not want police involved. The police we had in this city during this time were all in a state of perpetual anger, and they would make up a reason to arrest you if you even looked at them wrong. I freaked out in a major way when they showed up in the middle of the night. Also, if I'd called the police on the trespassing kids, the issues I was experiencing would have been stepped up. And yeah, I am a ginormous wimp. Those 2 girls have been known to physically attack people, and they were lots bigger than me. There have been hassles with neighbors since then, but none of them as awful as this was. Like my husband says, just be glad they didn't give their house to their mean daughter with the trespassing kids. I think I would have moved if that had happened. What a damn nightmare. And I definitely wouldn't have blamed you for moving if you were stuck with the daughter and kids as an ongoing thing. As a slight silver lining, if that happened, you would have got the satisfaction of selling the house to someone else from under their daughter's nose again. You could even deliberately pick the most awful person you could find to be their new neighbor. I guess there would be a bit of collateral damage for the rest of the street with that move, though. Very petty and very satisfying. But what you did was almost certainly better. Quietly held your ground and waited out these awful people until they were no longer a problem. I know that they were just trying to be annoying, but I wonder if there was any sincerity in their ideas of property rights, because they really learned those on another planet, didn't they? I wanted this thing and therefore I can do what I want with it is a dangerous line of thinking. I'm sure this wasn't the first or last time these adult schoolyard bullies engaged in this sort of behavior. Just be thankful the rest of it happened away from you. Difficult customer demands we place her very heavy sofa onto her delicate wooden floorboards. You got it, lady. Back in my warehouse days, there were occasions where the customer service manager, who's still a great friend of mine even to this day, would ask for myself and a few warehouse workers to help him redeliver and reinstall a repaired or reordered sofa for a customer. The day of the redelivery, the customer service manager pulls me aside and warns me that this lady is extremely difficult and aggressive. In this instance, she ordered a leather sofa in a high-quality leather, paid top dollar, waited for 22 weeks, and on delivery, decided she didn't like the color. Now, normally, the company doesn't do reorders for changes of mind when it comes to choosing the wrong color, but this lady made such a fuss and complained so much that the general manager made an exception. We get to the home and our contract driver is just unloading. The customer has chosen a massive 3-seater recliner with a metal frame and bracket on the bottom. Normally, with the metal bracket comes special plastic stoppers that go on each foot of the frame and each edge of the metal bracket so that no damage will occur to the customer's floor. As we carefully navigate the sofa into this lady's lounge, she starts complaining loudly that us warehouse workers are dirty, idiots, lazy, and too slow. We begin to unwrap the furniture and this lady is getting impatient. She's whining to the customer service manager, "How much longer is this going to take?" He assures her that we're taking our time to ensure the sofa is unwrapped and in perfect condition. We also note that this lady has light wooden floorboards, so I immediately move to start placing the stoppers on the floor. And she starts shrieking. "Why is he touching my lounge? Is he breaking it?" I said, "No, miss, I'm just—" "Don't talk to me. Get your filthy hands away from my lounge. I just need a few seconds to put on these rubber—" "Put my lounge down now, or I'm calling the manager." I shot a look to the customer service manager, and he just shrugs. We place the sofa directly onto the floorboards and we can already hear a scrape. The customer service manager hands the lady his paperwork. She signs off on a successful delivery and signs off that we've assembled the lounge as required and placed it down where she wants. This lady smirks at us and plonks herself down onto the lounge. There's a scraping sound as the metal frame digs into the wooden floorboards. We grab all the plastic packaging and make our way back to the store. Guess what was waiting for us? A customer complaint. According to this lady, we damaged her very expensive floorboards. The customer service manager shows where this customer signed off on a successful redelivery and that we assembled and placed the lounge to her satisfaction. She got exactly what she asked for. Yes, she did. Seriously, good riddance to the old bat. I hope her floor repair or replacement costs her an arm and a leg. It was just so darn pre-diddly-ictable that the complaint was waiting for the author as soon as they got back. But also, it must have been so satisfying. "Oh, what? You mean the thing that you yelled at me for doing to try and protect you from happened? Oh no, who could have foreseen this?" And there's no way in heck that this woman even started to learn her lesson from the encounter. I wouldn't be surprised if her screaming at customer service went on for a long time before the issue was finally put to rest. And it might even have ended with her getting reimbursed. It can happen if you're a retail slave. I hope not, though. She deserved a scratched floor for who she chose to be as a person. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Entitled Dad wants to trade a Happy Meal toy for my son's $40 toy. Let me preface this by saying my son loves to share. If he has one piece of candy left and you ask him for it, and say it's your favorite, he'll either give it to you or split it in half so you can have some. He enjoys things much more if he shares them so you can enjoy it too. That's just how he is. Also, we're on a pretty strict budget, so he doesn't receive rewards or presents except on special occasions. My son is 6, and we just came home from parent-teachers conference, and we were told he was doing great. So we stopped at the store on the way home, and I let him pick out a toy as a reward. He picks out a $40 Iron Man toy. This toy would light up, was about up to his knee, and was just a cool, fun Iron Man. Upon arriving home, he sees 2 small kids who, for the purposes of the story, we'll just call boy and girl. So he immediately wants to go outside and show them his new toy and play with them. I'm watching them from the window. I see the girl go to her house and come back with one of the Iron Man toys that came from a McDonald's Happy Meal. She gives the Happy Meal Iron Man to my son, grabs his Iron Man and her brother, and runs back to their house. I run outside and I'm met by my son who's crying. He tells me that they took his Iron Man and gave him the Happy Meal one as a trade. I am livid. I march over to their house and the dad comes to the door. I explain what happened and I tell him that I want my son's toy back. He tries to tell me that my son agreed to the trade and they're both Iron Men, so what's the difference? Meanwhile, I see these entitled kids behind him playing roughly with my son's toy. After about 15 minutes of arguing with a very sad 6-year-old by my side, I finally threatened to call the cops. The entitled dad tells the kids to give back the toy. They tell him, "No, we like this Iron Man better." He tells the kids he'll get them the same Iron Man next week when he gets paid, and the kids still tell him no. He then tells them they can keep it, but have to give it back when he gets them one. I interrupt him and say, "No, they can't keep my son's toy, that's his reward for doing good in school." The girl then smashed Iron Man on the floor, breaking the arm off him. My son, of course, starts bawling. The entitled dad and the kids just start laughing, and the girl just says, "Oops, he can have it back now." I take my devastated son home with his broken Iron Man. It's getting late at this point, and I tell my son that I'll take Iron Man to the hospital when he's sleeping, so his arm can get fixed, but he has to get to sleep so I can take him. About an hour after my son is asleep, there's a knock on our door. It's another neighbor. She tells me that she saw part of it, and the dad bragged to her husband about it. She also tells me that she does daycare for the kids and they often act like that. Our awesome neighbor proceeds to hand me a brand new Iron Man, just like my son's. I thank her but tell her I couldn't accept it. She laughs and says that she's putting the cost on the entitled dad's daycare bill, so he's actually paying for it. I accept and I invite her in for a glass of wine. Needless to say, Iron Man came out of the hospital looking brand new and my son was ecstatic. He also stopped playing with the entitled kids. For some clarification, this all happened 2 years ago. A lot of people are asking why I didn't call the cops anyway. Several reasons why we didn't, and some of you all might not understand this, but others will. Although I'm white, my family is Native American, and cops around here have twitchy trigger fingers. And the next, this got settled, albeit in a very roundabout way. Karma will finish the rest. I'm not sure what happened to the dad and the kids, although I like to think that their last name was O'Doyle, and their car went off a cliff after slipping on a banana peel. Again, this was not what happened, just my happy fantasy of what did. And I might be a bit tired biased in this, but yes, my kid is awesome. He really is. He's being taught manners, respect, and my main goal is for him to not be a jerk when he grows up. Oh, and for whoever decided to mark this as fake as frick, I could put pics, receipts, and contact info for the awesome neighbor, but I recognize facts are too trivial for trolls and keyboard warriors to bother with. So go be buddies with the entitled dad, and have a great day. My lord, we're getting a bunch of school bullies who apparently never grew out of their habits in today's stories. By my count, we're at 3 in a row so far. So I'll say that with any luck, these kids will outgrow their dad's influence. We're not sure where mum is, and with any luck, she's a much better influence who gets custody far more often. I'm only somewhat annoyed that the dad probably still finished off all of this thinking that he won the encounter, and didn't receive any cause to change his behavior that he noticed. I mean, I like that our author won, but something about these absolute jerks walking around with an unearned sense of smug victory rubs me the wrong way. Still, that's all on me, as our protagonist is clearly happy with the outcome, so I'll swallow my dissatisfaction. Am I the jerk for going home after I got told to sleep on the floor? I'll preface this by saying that my husband has a friend, Carl, who he considers to be one of his closest pals. My husband sometimes calls Carl his nicotine because of how much he misses him and wants to spend time with him. They do everything together, they're even coworkers working the same job. Unfortunately, Carlos's wife passed away from cancer 3 months ago, which caused him to distance himself. My husband felt devastated for him. He recently started spending more time with him again and bought him meals and new clothes. We planned a 3-day vacation to another state. I made a hotel reservation for 2. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had invited Carl to come with us. This made me upset because it spoiled the entire vacation. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just only found out when we went to pick him up. I sucked it up after my husband explained that Carl is a recent widower who's been wallowing in grief for so long and needed this vacation. The problem is, money is tight, and since Carl hasn't worked ever, since his wife passed, he couldn't pay for his own room, and we didn't have a budget for it. My husband said we should just share one room, and I again sucked it up, since he said we'd all be out on the beach all day anyway. The first night I was in bed when my husband and Carl got back. I got woken up by my husband telling me to get out of bed and sleep on the mattress he put out for me on the floor, and he and Carl would take the bed. I asked if he was serious, and he asked what else was he supposed to do. He said Carl was a guest, we can't let him sleep on the floor, and at the same time I can't share a bed with Carl while my husband sleeps on the floor. I told him I didn't sign up for this, but he told me to suck it up and tried to pull the Carl is a widower card. I told Carl to get out, and then I got up and dressed to go home. My husband started yelling at me, calling me irrational, but I wasn't having it. I left the hotel and traveled back home. Carl didn't say anything when he saw me leave, except that I was making this non-issue an issue. They got back and my husband refused to even talk about it, but still said I ruined this for Carl and us, and acted abhorrently and disgustingly. Look, I'll admit Carl is struggling and I might have ruined this for him, but I didn't even know he was coming in the first place. Yeah, it sounds like your husband might love Carl more than he loves you, which isn't a gay joke, by the way. Platonic love is a whole thing, and I honestly think I know a lot of love triangles of sorts that have a partner who's more attached to one of their friends than their partners. And there is a correct way to do that in the long, complex slog that is long-term relationships. And how the husband is handling this is not the right way. Yeah, Carl needs support, but hopefully Carl also has other friends and relationships to support him as well, and probably shouldn't be trying to fill the void of his recent lost wife the way he's doing. The husband is fine in trying to support his friend, but turfing your wife out of the bed that she paid for is going a bit far, mate. You are alienating one to accommodate the other, and I don't think you're going to like how this goes if you continue that particular balance in your love and social lives. Am I the jerk for storming off from my sister's wedding after she dead-named my son? I'm a 45-year-old single father of 3. Their mum died 10 years ago. I have 3 sons, Andrew, Connor, and Max. Connor was born female, he's trans. He came out as trans 5 years ago and is now socially transitioned, but not yet physically. My sister, who's 38, just got married. Me and my sons were also invited. My family has known that Connor is trans for 2 years now, and some have adjusted well, some not so much. My sister is pretty indifferent about it. Her wedding was really well organized to the last detail. She wanted all the men to wear shirt and tie and the women to wear sundresses. I texted her a picture of our outfits the day before the wedding, and she asked, "Where's Nia's dress?" I was a bit surprised and told her not to dead-name my son Connor, and that he'll be wearing a shirt and tie like the rest of the men, or we aren't coming. She said, fine, and that was that. At the reception, my sister got mad that Connor was wearing a tie, but didn't say much after that. When we sat down at our table, his placing card said Nia. I went to my sister and she said she just used their real name. I told her me and the boys are leaving and she told me, "Don't you dare cause a scene at my wedding. Nia can be a guy any other day." I called her a bigot and we left. My family says I ruined her wedding. Nope, the only person causing a scene here was the bride. It would have taken no effort to accommodate Connor after 5 years of apparently not minding them. And if you're going to be a bigot, at least let them know ahead of time so that they don't attend the wedding and cause that scene you're so deathly afraid of. The sister even said it was fine that he'd wear a shirt and tie, so she doesn't get to explode at everyone for them doing exactly what they said they'd do. Expectations were set and agreed to. You don't get to be mad. We can give her some benefit of the doubt and say that perhaps she forgot and that she agreed in the heat of wedding planning, but come on, realize your mistake, apologize, and move on. Entitled mother rigs a school contest, but I win, and she tries to take back the mega prize. So, some context. The community center in my community held something called a jelly bean dance every third Friday of the school year. It's for ages 6 through 12 people, so grades 1 to 6. There'd be an entry fee of $5, and then every item of food cost $1 each, which includes hot dogs, chips, pop, and chocolate. So bring $10 and you have dinner covered. With entry, you also get a raffle ticket that had a number. Every so often during the dance, the DJ would call a few numbers out, and whoever had that number got a prize of the winner's choice. Now, the prizes weren't cheap and they were pretty great. There were Barbies and Hot Wheels and Nerf guns and all that jazz. I lived in an upper middle class area, so that's why the prizes were so nice. So this is where entitled parent comes in. She ran the community center and planned the dances and the prizes. She was also the head of the parent council at my elementary school, but those are stories for a different day. But to make this long story a bit shorter, the mum would always take extra tickets and give them to her daughter, so she won a prize every single dance. I found this out years later. Now to the story. It was 2010, I was 11 in grade 6, and it was the dance before Halloween, and kids were allowed to wear costumes. I went as a dragon. There were a few different Halloween-themed prizes. I remember there was a Catwoman Barbie, a black cat Webkins, and even a pumpkin costume. But the prize everyone wanted was the mystery box. It was a big box covered in black wrapping paper, so no one knew what was inside it. No one except the entitled mother, because she was the one who bought everything. Apparently this box was worth over $150. The night was fun. Everyone danced to the music and all got a sugar rush from the candy and pop, and generally had a great time. Throughout the night, various names were called and the lucky winners got to choose their prizes. Then the final song came on. It was Fallen Leaves by Billy Talent. I always considered this my lucky song, even though the story behind the song isn't very happy, because good things just seemed to happen to me whenever I heard it. I'd find things I thought I'd lost or get a good mark on a test, generally good things. So I felt good about my chances. The song ends and the DJ announces it's time to give away the mystery box. He called the numbers out and the tickets were similar with numbers until the last 3 digits. This is where things got funny. The DJ said the third to last number and I heard a roar of "No!" Second to last number with the same dramatic "No!" And then the final "No!" I looked at my ticket to see that I had won the mystery box. I ran to the front and showed the DJ my ticket. He checks it over and it was indeed the ticket that won. Then I noticed entitled mum's kid standing beside me waving her ticket in the DJ's face and whining, "No, I have the ticket right here." He looks at it and tells her, "Sorry, but you don't. Better luck next time," and she storms off crying to the entitled mother. The DJ hands me the mystery box and tells everyone to have a good night and get home safely. The lights go on and there's a crowd of kids around me wanting to know what's inside it. I didn't want to open it up until I got home because it was a big box. I told them I'd tell them on Monday what was in it. I grabbed my coat and went outside to wait for my ride. I knew it was going to either be my mum or my stepdad, and as I wait inside the door, the entitled kid comes over to me and tries to open my box. We're both 11 and in the same class. She unfortunately was one of my many bullies. I pull the box away and tell her to leave me alone. She starts whining again. "Give me the box. I was supposed to win it. Mummy made sure of it." Me being polite, I said, "Well, maybe you'll win one next month. It's before Christmas, so it will be awesome." She whines some more about how she wants it, and then her mother walks up to me and yells, "You're not supposed to have this. My kid was supposed to win it. Now give it to her." The mother was this huge lady, tall and fat and kind of scary. I stood my ground and said, "I won it. Besides, she wins every time. It's time to let someone else win for a change. Losing is part of life." Yes, I, an 11-year-old, said that. My great-grandma would say it to me, in a nice way of course, and it was one of her many life lessons. This lady looked at me in shock and then started to grab for the box. I held on to it as best as I could, as I yelled at her to let go of it. All the while, the entitled kid was pounding on my back and trying to help her mother. Suddenly, my stepdad walks through the doors to pick me up. "What the hell is going on?" I say, "She's trying to steal the box that I won." "No, you're trying to steal it from my kid. You don't even know what's in it. I do." "I don't know because it's a mystery box. I'm not supposed to know until I open it, and you bought the prize." I was looking at my stepdad. He's 6'6" and really scary looking. I was honestly scared because I thought he was going to make me give it to her. Being the child of the other man, I rarely ever get what I want. My stepdad then surprised me by grabbing the box out of the entitled mother's hands and told me to go get in the car. He then followed me out, box in hand. I do remember the entitled mother yelling back at me that she'll be talking to the principal about this, but she couldn't do crap since this was after school and not even on school property. When we got home, my dad gave me my box and I finally got to open it. And what was inside blew my mind. Inside it was the first 4 seasons of Supernatural, the first 2 volumes of Walking Dead comics, which was perfect because the first season was premiering on Halloween, the complete series of my favorite animated show, Reboot, awesome Canadian show, which I highly recommend you all check out, except the Guardian Code. That's the reboot of Reboot, and it's garbage. Harry Potter wand and glasses, a bat webkins, a pair of pumpkin socks, a crap ton of candy, and a Calgary Flames hat signed by the captain himself, Jerome Iginla. I figured that the entitled mother got her husband to sign it because he works for the Flames. Jealous, the guy got to work with Iggy. I was over the moon. I felt like this box was made for me. I mean, monster stories, reboot, and hockey? That's my life in a nutshell, even today. I shared some of the candy with my stepdad to say thank you for helping me. I'm not sure if he ate it though, he probably gave it to one of my sisters. I was a bit shocked at some of the things in the box because they weren't 100% kid-friendly. I mean, a 6-year-old could have won that, and the Walking Dead comics are graphic as all heck. But I guess the entitled mum was so confident that her daughter would win that she didn't care. I mean, I was surprised that my mum let me read the comics at 11. I could read them as long as I didn't show my sisters or take it to school. I guess it was a big FU to the entitled kid because my mum knew what she did to me at school. But thanks to the entitled mum and kid, I became a Walking Dead and a Supernatural fan, which I still am to this day. I never went to a single jelly bean dance again. I didn't feel the need to since I'd hit the jackpot. I was also scared of the mother and her kid. And I wrote this story because I was driving to work this morning and I heard Fallen Leaves on the radio. I remembered this story, and since it's my lucky song, I'm considering going and buying a lottery ticket. I probably won't though. Anyways, thank you for reading. Have an awesome rest of your day. And remember that you are enough. Well, I think we can safely say that the entitled mother in the story was engaged in possibly the lamest sort of corruption possible. If you're going to abuse your powers, why did you settle for rigging competitions to get your kids Hot Wheels, Barbies, and comics? You could have used that flagrant disregard for your responsibilities to go into something like white-collar crime and taken millions at the taxpayer's expense. I'm just saying, go big or go home. If you're going to betray people's trust when they give you their money, you should just be all in on it. And it was very lucky that the author won the box instead of some unsuspecting 6-year-old. I mean, don't get me wrong, the 6-year-old narrator would have been as thrilled to get some gory comic books as his mother would have been appalled. But at that point, the entitled mother is literally just using the money of all the trusting parents to buy gifts specifically for her kid. And good on our narrator for standing her ground against a challenge that I'm not sure any of us could have overcome at the age of 11. Not only her bully, but also the bully's equally overbearing parent. And awesome parenting from the stepdad here. Nice moment of bonding going on there. I hope that cemented a healthy and respectful step relationship at home going forward. The author is not the jerk here. The corrupt mother is 100% the most lame and low-power jerk that we've ever seen. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I can only book travel in coach class? Okay. Shortly before COVID brought all manner of traveling work to a screeching halt, I was finishing up a job and getting ready to book my travel home. Normally, everyone would just fly. And in my case, that meant a nice short trip of about 2 hours in the air. However, this particular location and the route back home for me had an extremely scenic train route that took about 12 hours. And as a bonus, I could get a sleeper car for a pretty cheap price. Less even than the flight. I asked my boss if there was any reason I had to fly instead of taking the train, as the latter would save them money, and he said it would be fine. I didn't waste his time or mine by mentioning any of the above details. I simply booked my ticket and immediately sent in the receipt for reimbursement. Not 20 minutes later, I get an email. To paraphrase, "What the frick is this? I thought you said you were going to book travel that would save us money. What do you think you're doing booking a sleeper car? You're not one of the big shots out here. Send me a new receipt for your coach class accommodations." Okay, as you wish. Cue malicious compliance. Since this happened so quickly, I was able to cancel my $150 train ticket without issue. And since there was no way I was taking a 12-hour train ride in coach instead of a 2-hour flight, I booked my air travel like I normally would and immediately sent in the $450 receipt for my coach class flight. I get yet another email asking me what the hell I was doing. Now, I'm good at booking travel and I know how to find good prices. I knew that there wasn't a cheaper flight to be had, so I wrote back, "Sorry, this is the cheapest coach class flight I could find. If you find a better one, please let me know before the 24-hour cancellation window closes, and I'll be happy to book that instead." Clearly frustrated, they told me to stop playing games, cancel the flight, and just buy the damn train ticket. I didn't. I took the flight home and got reimbursed per company policy for my coach class flight. Am I the jerk? Fricking excellent. Yet another micromanaging bookkeeper humbled by the sheer force of reality. The part of this that blows my mind is that there's apparently a sleeper coach train ticket that costs less than an economy flight? The narrator tries to fly as infrequently as possible and lives in a country where rail travel is relatively good and affordable compared to anywhere else outside a third world country with bad airports, and he has to book a long way in advance. And the rail ticket will still almost always cost more than one of the budget airlines. So this magic country that the author lives in will be a very intriguing mystery to me forever. You're not the jerk, author. Your boss might not be either, but they certainly don't come off very well in the story, just sort of dumb. I'm quite surprised at the length you went to teach them their lesson. In this case, taking a flight that you hadn't wanted to take in the first place, just to screw your company out of more money as revenge. But then again, reinforcing the message that you know what you're doing and that you're not to be trifled with in the future can't really be a bad thing. Entitled mother thinks that my personal swim gear belongs to her. So, for some backstory, we have a swim team at my high school that starts in mid-November. I wanted to start to get back into shape before I try out for it, so I joined a gym that had a lap pool I could use. I'm 17, so I just drive there and back myself. A few days earlier, before the encounter, I learned that a swim team for 10 to 11-year-olds started just a few minutes after I would usually stop swimming. Like 5 to 10 minutes after I usually stop. So, on to the story. I just finished my workout and climbed out of the pool. As I was walking over to my bag, which had my stuff, I saw that a mum and her kid had walked into the pool area. I guessed that they were here for the swim team practice, so I just kept drying myself off normally. I'm kind of lazy, so I just put my shorts over my wet jammers to save some time. I finished getting dressed and I started to pack up my swim gear. I'd bought myself some nice swim gear like a kickboard, a pull buoy, and a pair of new goggles, with some money I earned from my job. I finished packing the stuff into my bag and started to walk out, but the mum I saw earlier came over to me. The encounter went like this. "Hey, my son forgot his swim gear for his practice today. I was wondering if he could use your gear." And yes, she was actually pretty nice about it at first, but it got worse. I said, "Sorry, I'm just about to head out and I need to take my swim gear with me. Could you just leave your gear here and come back for it tomorrow?" "No, sorry, I'm just not comfortable with that." I turn around and start to walk off when she grabs my shoulder. And this is where things went downhill. "So? My son needs that gear for his practice. Just give it to me and I'll leave it at the desk for you tomorrow." "I need to go. I'm not giving you my stuff. Maybe the coach has gear you could borrow from." I started to walk off when something I didn't expect to happen happened. This lady literally grabs my bag, which not only has my gear but my wallet and phone, and starts walking away with it. I only had it over one shoulder and wasn't really holding onto it too tight. "Hey, give me my bag back, that has my phone in it." "So? You should have let me have it, and now it's your fault you left your phone in it. My son needs this gear more than you." The lifeguard who was sitting near the pool saw what was happening and walked over. "Is there a problem here?" "Yeah, he wouldn't give me his gear and my son needs the gear more than he does." The lifeguard looks over at me and just notices the sheer look of, "Are you seeing this bullcrap?" on my face. "Okay, I saw you take his gear away from him. Just give it back or we'll have to kick you out." "How come? My son needs that gear more than he does. He wouldn't give it to me." "Come on, just give me my bag back, it has my phone in it." The lifeguard makes her give me my bag back and she just walks away with the most annoyed look on her face. The only upside is that I got a 2-week free membership to the gym. The lifeguard told the story to his boss, and they wanted to make sure I still wanted to be at the gym. Good guy. More people should be like him. So that was my very first encounter with a wild, entitled mother, and my first story about them online. Well done on surviving your first harrowing encounter with that most feared and awful of creatures, dear author. It's like a Spartan teenager's first encounter with a wild animal at the beginning of the film 300. Not all of us survive the first harrowing instance, and you were lucky to come out of it unscathed. In all seriousness, what is with these people just being so darn certain that they're entitled to commit either theft or property damage with no fear of legal repercussions? None of them even seem to try to conceal what they've done when they're called out by authority figures or cops. They just seem to think it's okay that they're doing this. Like the jump from, he won't lend me his property, to, now I'm legally entitled to take all of his possessions and walk off with them, is just such a breathtaking gap in logic that I always wonder how some of them have got this far in life without being arrested. Imagine the kind of person who thinks this way. Now imagine that instead of just being a random person in the gym, you're a service person who's obligated to go further in terms of being nice to them. Screw that. I denied a cop the bathroom code at Subway. So I was working at Subway a few years ago, and a man came in with his wife and 2 children. I had all 4 sandwiches started when the man asked me for the code to the bathroom. The policy was you had to make a purchase to get the bathroom code, but by the way he was doing the potty dance, it was pretty apparent this guy needed to go. Obviously, either he or his wife will pay for the 4 sandwiches I've already started. The next day, my boss sits me down and lectures me about how the code is on the receipt for a reason. She watches the tape and sees me give the man the code and tells me, I don't care who it's for. Whether it's your friend, family, whatever, you name it, you do not give the code under any circumstances. Later on that night, I was working by myself when some guy in a trench coat and greasy long hair came in the side door and said, Hey man, someone got seriously messed up outside. A long line of customers waited for me while I subtly grabbed the bread knife, which is sharp as frick, and went around to check. It wasn't the best part of town, so you never know with people. Anyway, as Trenchcoat Man had stated, someone was seriously messed up outside. His face was all bloody and he was just a mess. I called 911 and went back to making sandwiches. Sometime later, a few cop cars and an ambulance showed up. They were doing their business outside, and then one of the officers comes in and asks for the bathroom code, I guess so he could do his business inside. Like 6 hours earlier, my boss told me not to give it away under any circumstances without a purchase. I laughed a little and told him what I tell all the other customers. I'm sorry, you have to make a purchase first. You can get a cookie, which is less than $1, and then it'll be on the receipt. He didn't realize the laugh was really at myself and how awkward of a situation he unknowingly put me in, nor did I have the chance to explain it before the laugh and the rejection of the bathroom code, which caused him to become straight up furious. He gives me 3 warnings to give him the code. Each time I tell him I'm not going to give it to him, and the customers are actually on my side, telling him I'm just doing my job. After his 3rd warning, he shook his head and muttered, I can't believe you're interfering with an ongoing investigation. And he uses the walkie on his shoulder to get some information. About 5 minutes later, one of the cops handed me a phone. I answered and my manager said, Are you freaking serious? Long story short, the cop got a bathroom code and a free bag of chips. Am I the jerk? I don't know if this is jerk vigilante title or not. You are much more committed than the narrator would be to dragging his boss over the coals, and this workplace is clearly running way too smoothly if your boss has time to call you up in a formal meeting about this particular issue. Considering that most people who've worked in hospitality could count themselves lucky if more than half their colleagues weren't showing up high on green herb or constantly getting screamed at for mistakes that actually affect your workflow, it sounds like this place had things going far too well. I'm not sure that your relationship with the boss would have improved much after you pulled your little act of malicious compliance, but it's your life and your job. You want to follow your boss's ridiculous stipulations to the letter just to make them mad? Okay then, enjoy staring down an armed service member to do so. I do have to commend your customers for sticking up for you though. That's weirdly nice of them. Investor refuses to inspect house and pays $50,000 over asking price. Instantly regrets it. This story comes from my parents' next-door neighbor of over 20 years. For some background, my parents and their neighbor bought homes in an up-and-coming part of Florida 20 years ago. We're talking half-acre lots with 2,500 square foot homes for about $130,000. Our neighbor's home was a little smaller than my parents', no pool, and over the 20 years, the only thing done to the house was a new roof. Nothing else had changed, everything was still the original. Appliances, paint, AC unit, cabinets, tile, and carpet. I wish I could say she took care of it and never needed to change things, but that wasn't the case. Our neighbor's house looks 20 years old. Well, she's a widow and the house is huge for just her, so she decided to sell it and take advantage of the market. She listed it for $400,000. Despite her never having put a penny into it, the house goes on a bidding war, and the top bidder is an investor from California. She offers to pay $30,000 over asking, pay the closing costs, and can do it the same day. The investor had two stipulations. Our neighbor takes the house off the market immediately, and she turns over the key to her management company, with the cash for the home held in escrow until the key was turned over and our neighbor's side of the paperwork is done. Now, our neighbor was upfront with this woman and the state of the home and asked if she wanted to have her management company come in and look at it first. The woman says, "No, I'm renting the house and it doesn't need to be painted. Just pull it off the market." So here we have our not-so-malicious compliance. This woman bought the home for about $450,000 when all was said and done. So our neighbor immediately goes to the management company with her realtor, signs her paperwork, hands over the key, and gets the check for the home. A few days later, our neighbor gets a call from the investor lady, and she is irate. The house is in disarray, in need of a paint job ASAP, new appliances and flooring at the least. She demands that our neighbor paint the house. She won't take ownership of the home until that is done. To which our neighbor responds to her, "It's not my home anymore. It was signed over to you and the check handed to me and cleared. That house is no longer my problem. Enjoy." This story all came about because yesterday my parents called our old neighbor. There was a for sale sign on the house again and we were confused. Our old neighbor promptly showed up and told us the story, and we're all laughing hysterically because the woman has listed it for $430,000. Which anyone with eyes to tour it would never pay, and even if she did get it, she'd still be losing a ton of money. Who doesn't love a story when greedy investors try to inflate the market and lose big? In short, investor offers top dollar for a crap home without doing any due diligence, and loses big. Was she a jerk? From what the author has written about it, it sounds like the neighbor did their due diligence and went out of their way to tell the investor about the state of things when they could have been much more cagey about it. I'd say that although they're not exactly the victim of this situation, the neighbor didn't really do anything wrong either. And as a current victim of the housing market, I'm always somewhat biased against these wannabe slumlords buying up everything on the market to rent and keeping property values sky high. Look, folks, don't be sneaky and underhanded in your dealings, but if someone like the investor insists they want to make a deal despite you warning them about it, get their damn signatures on everything so that you're fine, and keep your correspondence in case they come for you like this when they realize the hole they've dug for themselves and try to drag you down with them. Am I the jerk for announcing that my dad's not paying for my college tuition? My aunt and uncle are paying for my cousin's college. My dad had a college fund for me, but he had stipulations like he wanted nothing below a B for grades and to pre-approve any classes I take, weekly meetings to discuss grades, and a bunch of other stuff. Which might be fine if you have a normal dad. Mine isn't. My dad has a temper, and I spent between 6th and 12th grade stressed out about grades and being screamed at or grounded over things that sometimes weren't even my fault, like a teacher not updating online grading and an assignment being marked missing because of it, and getting my backpack and locker randomly searched by him for no reason besides to make sure you're not hiding anything. One time, I was planning to try out for soccer. My math grade dropped to a B, and he had a fit and said, "Well, no soccer." So I didn't try out, obviously. Then time passes and he's laying into me about how I never follow through on things. Like what happened with soccer, you were all excited and then didn't do it. I said, "You said I couldn't," and he claimed that he never said that. I decided to pay for school myself because of 1, not being stressed over getting screamed at, and 2, I didn't feel like constantly worrying that he'd disapprove of a class or a grade and decide not to pay, which I could totally see him doing. I'd rather be in debt than controlled for 4 more years. I just finished my first year at uni. Well, my family got together on the 4th, and well, sometimes they're nosy. They were talking about my cousin's school, and my uncle looked at my dad and said, "Well, how much is your son's school costing you?" And I said, "What are you asking him for? I'm the one paying for it." Later on, my dad was angry and said it was out of line to say that and that I embarrassed him. I didn't do it to embarrass him, I was just being honest. He doesn't even know how much tuition is, so he was the wrong person to ask. Am I the jerk? Absolutely not. This guy just sounds like an overbearing jerk whose only degree of value in his kid is how well they do. And newsflash to anyone who thinks otherwise, but you've got to actually try and make your family happy as well as driving them to succeed. They're not an achievement checklist, they're a family. How much more does the narrator have to explain that basic concept? And if your dad is embarrassed about being called out for not paying tuition, maybe he should, pay for tuition. Yet another story where I wouldn't be surprised if the author goes no contact after they leave home, to be honest. It seems like they're on the cusp of realizing that the hold their father wants to have on their education has gone past healthy levels. Also, that part about the soccer is really messed up. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my stepson return home without punishment after he ruined my daughter's book collection? My biological daughter of 12 likes to collect and read old children's books. Her name is Susan. She's become an incredible reader. She had problems with reading and learning before, and we were advised to encourage her to read. And ever since she started reading, which she does regularly, her skills have improved. She also reads to her 2-year-old sister every night. I have a 16-year-old stepson, Levi, who can be a hothead sometimes. We don't have a father-son relationship, but I respect him and he respects me, though he can act quite mean and selfish towards me and his sisters. He'd throw away stuff that belongs to us over small arguments and teases Susan for spending a lot of time reading, calling her grandma. My wife and I discussed his behavior and had conversations and agreed on punishments, but Levi would just go to his dad's place whenever he causes troubles, and then he'd have his dad yell at me for wanting to discuss a suitable punishment. Then Levi comes home days later expecting me to let go of what he did every time. It's frustrating. I got a call at work from Susan saying Levi took her entire book collection and threw them in the pool after she refused to lend him and his friends her camera for his trip. My wife helped get them out, but they were wet and some were torn. It was horrific because some of those books are hard to get and meant a lot to Susan as part of her life. I was so mad at Levi, I came home to have a conversation with my wife to decide on punishment, but he had already packed a small bag and went to his dad's. I asked my wife how could she let him basically run after doing this, and she said he called his dad and he came to pick him up after Susan said that I was coming home to deal with the problem. I went to his dad's house and he refused to let me see him. I told him how Levi was hiding from consequences, and his dad tried to justify why Levi was acting out by blaming me for how me and Susan treated him. He said he'd even get child protection services involved if I ever try to punish him because I'm not his dad and I have no right. He said that what Levi did was a reaction to my daughter being mean to him. He told me to leave because Levi won't come home until I promise not to do anything about what he did and put it in writing. I told him Levi should stay there with him then. He's not to come back until he gets a proper punishment. His dad argued that it's his mum's house too and called my wife and asked her to let this go and we'll figure out some way to resolve it. But I don't think it's fair for Susan to have her books ruined and Levi just get away with it scot-free. They're asking me to let it go, but this will only encourage Levi to do worse if I don't deal with it now. It's been 2 weeks and my in-laws say I was out of line for banning Levi from coming home, and they're telling me to step back, but I'm refusing. Levi's dad thinks that because I'm not his bio dad, then I have no right to punish him for whatever he does in the house. In the past, his dad has caused issues when I used to take Levi's electronics that his dad bought as punishment. Then I got talked out of punishing him every time he did something unacceptable, whether to me or his sisters. I've arranged for family therapy, but Levi's dad refused to let him go. I'd like to mention that my in-laws said that Levi is willing to apologize to Susan, and so this should be enough to get this over with. But I kept saying no, and for that I'm being considered at fault. Am I the jerk? I don't think you're the jerk at all from the information we have. Granted, step-parent relationships do have some added layers and questions about what it is okay to do when you're running your household. But honestly, it sounds like this kid is getting away with murder, and his bio dad is ensuring that fact. And eventually, if he's not taught how to be a functioning and responsible person, Levi will be the one to suffer for it. His father should really be thinking about whether things like vandalism would really be going unpunished if it happened in his own household. Because I'm pretty sure that if the tables were turned on him, Levi would be looking at consequences for breaking his dad's stuff. And I can understand your wife wanting to just end the situation, but it feels like the responsible and reasonable thing to do is hold Levi accountable for his actions, and create more of an environment of respect. Because despite what the author says, it doesn't sound like their stepson is giving them any. McDonald's wrongly terminates me, and I get revenge. For a little backstory, I used to work for a McDonald's in my hometown. I worked my way up from crew to crew trainer to management over the course of 4.5 years, and one store transfer. I'm now working as a manager in Store 2 when my general manager, Catty, comes up to me and asks if I want to start working overnight with a $1 raise. So I say, heck yeah, more money, and a consistent schedule, win-win in my book. So my next shift rolls around, and I come in and I meet my shift of workers. Pretty cool people. Well, about 4 weeks go by, and I find that the shift right before mine isn't stocking up their station before they leave, and leaving my shift with nothing, and we're left scrambling to get things in order, as well as restocking for morning shift, which is Catty's shift. Well, I stay late one day and talk with Catty about the evening shift not restocking for my shift, and she says it's my shift's job to only stack for my shift and nothing else. So I say, okay, and go home. Well, that night rolls around, and cue revenge. I tell my shift what Catty said, and they're more than happy to not only do their jobs, but to not have to roll Catty's 12 cases of burritos. Each case is 80 single burritos for her morning shift. Well, that morning comes, and Catty is fuming, because as she comes in, me and my shift clock out and go home. As I'm pulling into my driveway, I receive a call. It's Catty yelling at me saying I'm written up for not prepping for her shift, and to come back and personally hand her 12 cases of burritos. I then say, but you said it's the shift on duty's job to prep and stock for said shift. She said, I don't care, get in here and do it or don't come back. I reluctantly go in and roll them, and sign my write-up and then head over to the main office to chat with the bosses, who suggest a list for the evening shift so they'll remember to restock before they leave. Things then get a little better for about a month and a half, and then we lose 3 managers and 7 employees. So Catty decides to promote 3 of the worst possible employees to management, one being a felon who was charged with theft. His name is Darren. Well, Darren is put on evening shift and things just start to go downhill, and stuff starts to go missing. First, it was small, and now it's things like giant 5-pound packs of M&Ms, boxes of patties, and so on. Well, I start to keep a journal of all the stuff that goes missing, and most, but not all, is on Darren's shift. So I let Catty know that she needs to look at this shift to see where all the products are going. She then tells me not to worry about other people's shifts and only worry about mine. So I say, okay, and I drop the subject and go back to my shift. Well, about 2 more weeks pass, and I start to notice the safe where we keep our money from the store starts to become messed up. So I, as the overnight manager, have to count it so I can close the system for the day. It should come to around $1,500. If not, I'm supposed to call Catty so she can come in and fix it. Well, I count it and I'm short $600. So I'm freaking out, and I call Catty and she groggily answers the phone, saying she'll be in about 15 minutes. So I go over and tell her Darren was on shift last shift, which is stated in our handbook, on what we're supposed to do. Well, she gets there and she's furious at me because apparently I must have stolen the money because I'm the only manager there. I then state no, I was the manager that came in and it was Darren who was here first. She says whatever and adjusts the system so I could close it out while she left. Well, the next day rolls around and I get called in asking if I could stop by work for a minute to talk to Catty about last night. So I say okay. I get there and she comes out with termination and theft papers saying I must sign them as I was being terminated for theft of $600. I signed the termination and not the theft papers. I was in shock. I worked for over 4.5 years for this place, and I'm being fired for something that I didn't even do. This won't stand, I said to myself. Time for revenge. Well, I leave and contact a lawyer about this, and I hand them my journal that I've been keeping track of the theft in. And a week later, we go to the McDonald's headquarters to speak with the owners. Well, to our surprise and luck, Catty was there too. I smile and wave as I walk up with my lawyer, and she's just staring at me with daggers. As my lawyer speaks to the owners, he then hands them the journal and says my client has a record of when this theft had started up until his wrongful termination. He then states if this can't be resolved here, we'll see you in court. Then I see Catty go pale and sit down as the owners look through my journal and then ask her why she didn't do anything to Darren or at least look into it, and the other shifts I'd reported. They then turn to me and say I can have my job back and anything on me is thereby rescinded as of that moment. I politely decline as I just wanted my name to be cleared and the charges to be dropped. They then turn to Catty and say, go back to your store, we'll be by shortly to chat with you about this matter. But little did they know I had a plan in store for their restaurant. As I left, I waited for Catty to go back to their restaurant. I see her leave and start to head back to the restaurant as well, not to see her get chewed out, but a far, far more risky plan that I had in store. I got over there and waited 10 minutes. Then I went around to the back of the store, making sure I was in the camera blind spots, until I came to an outside box in the bushes behind the building, with one big black switch inside it. I switch it, the power goes off, and I get the heck out of Dodge and park at the phone store across the street. As I park, I see mass pandemonium from McDonald's. The employees are rushing out of the restaurant, followed by Cathy, who is raging mad and is screeching like a banshee at the employees who ran outside, all the while the owners have just pulled up to witness the whole ordeal. I'm now moved on in life, but man did that feel good to get one up on my jerk boss. Getting one up on the Golden Arches is never a bad guy move on my books. Catty sounds like the worst kind of boss and is that extra irritating combination of being both incompetent and evil to the author. Look, we can weather the brutal meanies in our life, but if they aren't even good at their jobs to make up for it, you resent them even more, because why are they even around? Telling them not to prep for the following shift, and then immediately screaming at them for not prepping for the following shift? Get effed, Catty. It sounds like our author was way too resourceful to be spending his life at McDonald's anyway. The petty revenge at the end on Cathy's store does take this into the territory of jerk vigilanteism, but I enjoyed it and it was only really going to come down on the shoulders of that awful woman, so go hard, I say. I have to move my towel? Fine. Have some sand. When I was about 12, my family and I went on a camping trip with my bullying pill of an uncle and his family. One day we went to a beach that was a 5-minute walk from our campsite. I got there first and it was super windy, so I spent forever struggling to get my towel to lay still. Now when I say it was windy, I mean it was whipping up sand windy, and any sort of movement sent sand flying through the air. It was great. When I finally got settled in, it wasn't long till the rest of the group started filing onto the beach, with my jerk uncle leading the way. My uncle decided to lay his towel out about 3 foot from where I was sitting. As soon as he finished, he looked at me and demanded that I move myself and my towel somewhere else. To this day, I cannot remember what his reason was for making me move, but I can tell you it was absurd and I was thoroughly annoyed. So I got up and grabbed my towel in a very aggressive manner, causing a wall of sand to fly up and slam into my uncle's face. I'm pretty sure he wanted to kill me that day, what with all the screaming about how I did it on purpose and got sand in his eyes and mouth, but I swore up and down that it was an accident, so the rest of our family believed me, and they told my uncle he was acting insane. By then, everyone on the beach was staring at us, so he had no choice but to stop making a scene and hate me in silence. I most definitely did it on purpose. Am I the jerk? I mean, we don't have that much in the way of descriptions on how your uncle was awful, but go for it. It sounds like he was kind of foul-mouthed and bad-tempered, and telling you to just move when you were there first is a bit annoying, so sure, we'll go with you maliciously complying with his order. The best part was that they all sided with you. I reckon everyone, including him, knew that you did this on purpose, and the rest of them didn't care because they were sick of him. Amazing. Thank you for writing in. See you next time. My boss left me dirty phone voicemails, so I played them for his wife. When I was in college, I had a minimum wage job in a bargain retail store. I worked in the warehouses around a lot of older guys, and the job required heavy lifting. usually between 75 to 250 pounds of pallets and boxes. I started off working in the warehouse and it motivated me to start lifting weights seriously. I lost 26 pounds over the course of my first 6 months there by working out solo at the campus gym. However, most of my coworkers were older guys, while I was around 23 or 24 at the time, and we had very little in common. I rarely talked to anyone else, but I did want to be seen as one of the cool guys. So it was strange but an honor when the manager of the fleet of delivery trucks, we'll call him Victor, approached me at work one day and started conversing with me. Victor was older, 45 I think, but he was well respected by everyone in the warehouse. He dressed well and seemed pretty fit. In the course of the conversation, we discussed lifting weights together, and he invited me over to his home gym one day. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to lift together on a Friday when his wife, who we'll call Nora, was at work. I showed up at his house with one of my favorite t-shirts on. Victor was shirtless. He suggested that I lift with no shirt as well. I felt uneasy about that and said no. Victor snatched my shirt by the left sleeve and pulled it until it ripped. He apologized, promised to buy another shirt for me, and I had to lift with no shirt on. We worked chest and triceps, but throughout the lift I felt uncomfortable. Victor kept touching my chest and my stomach. He said it was to focus, and I kept pushing it to the back of my head, but I did decline to go inside Victor's house. I left my ripped shirt at his house in the garage where his weight set was located. Over the next few days, the awkwardness increased. Victor asked during phone calls if I had a girlfriend, if I was doing the deed regularly, if I watched any particular adult material. He ran into me in the break room at work during my lunch break and would always sit close to me and just talk about really personal stuff. I learned that his wife was a pastor at a prominent church and that she made more money than Victor, and that Nora did not believe in doing the deed outside of procreation. When I asked about my shirt being replaced, Victor always said he had money problems. I ended up replacing the shirt myself later on. Victor invited me over again to work out with him. I wore a tank top that time, and Victor asked me to take it off. I did. And during the workout, he mentioned that he was behind on his electric bill. He asked if he could borrow $40 and said that he and his wife were having a rough patch, so he couldn't borrow from her. I went to the nearest bank, withdrew the money, and put $40 in Victor's hand after the workout. He promised to pay me back at payday. Payday came and went, but Victor's presence did not. I received late night, like after 10 p.m. phone calls from Victor. When I answered, he would sound drunk and talked endlessly, occasionally talking about my body. I stopped answering his calls and I got voicemails from him, also sounding drunk, asking me to call him back. When I confronted Victor at work to stop calling me and pay me back, 2 days after payday, he told me he'd pay me back next payday and that he just really needed a friend to talk to. I felt bad, agreed to wait, but also made up an excuse about how I couldn't lift weights with him. He didn't pay me back the following payday either, but Victor did send me a thread of pictures with his shirt off, in his underwear, and a couple completely undressed, all within a week of payday. When that third payday came, Victor avoided me at work. So here was my revenge. Infuriated with his harassment and not being paid, I went to Facebook the day after payday and found Victor's wife's Facebook page and her church's Facebook page. I created a Gmail account with Victor's full name, then created a Facebook page with his first name and last initial, and uploaded all of the photos he had sent me. Then I friended his wife and the church's Facebook pages, set all settings to friends-only level privacy, and logged out. That same night, I called our company's ethics hotline and left a voicemail tip. Mr. Victor F. is drinking very heavily and making lewd comments to coworkers and customers. Please look into this. Within a week, Victor was fired. Not only had he been drinking on the job and sometimes come to work hungover, he had been using corporate gas cards to fuel his and his wife's vehicles. He was arrested during his shift, and several employees saw him walking out in handcuffs. I unfortunately didn't see this. Victor called me, drunk again, from his hotel room after his wife kicked him out of their house. Not satisfied with this level of revenge, I recorded Victor's voicemails into a handheld recorder I'd brought from my college classes, and I mailed the recorder, using Victor's home address as the return address, to his wife's church and marked it as, "Attention, Nora F., press play." And then I changed phone numbers. I haven't heard from Victor in years, but his firing was the talk of the store for months. In short, he owed me money and tried to make me his honey. He got very rough and did a bad touch. So I ruined his life. Was it funny? I don't know that it was funny. This was a guy who was clearly very lonely and in a marriage that he was very unhappy with, even if he wasn't taking action to get out of it. Well, you ruined Victor's life, but it sounds like he might have done most of the work himself. Yeah. Look, Victor, I'm sorry, but having a wife that doesn't put out doesn't mean that you just get to go and hit on people at work who clearly aren't interested. You needed to talk to your wife, and if she wasn't open to some therapy or maybe something more drastic like at least opening the marriage up for you at least, maybe you guys should have looked at divorce for both of your sakes. Then again, she's a minister, and maybe she wasn't letting him leave for the sake of her image. Nonetheless, regardless of the reasons behind it, Victor was the bad guy here and was taking his unhappiness out on an innocent party. Get sober and get therapy, Victor. You need it. Father's Day compliance. Exactly 18 years ago to the date, I was over at Dad's house and I needed a wrench. Coming from a long line of mechanics, I know he has one available, and as I didn't have my kit in my car, I asked to borrow one. Dad, of course, said yes, and handed me the mechanic's toolbox, just out of habit. I opened it and immediately noticed that a Craftsman's 7/16 ratchet end wrench was missing. Again, I come from a long line of mechanics, and every tool should have its place, be it in a drawer, box, or outlined on a pegboard. And I thought it was weird that Dad had lost the wrench out of his spare and house toolkit. So I said, "You're missing the 7/16, showing him the missing slot. Now Dad, being Dad, just had to bust on me a bit, so looked me dead in the eyes and beaming a huge smile, he responded, "It was there when I gave it to you." Mind you, I hadn't left the kitchen. I hadn't so much as shifted my feet. I knew he was lying, he knew he was lying, but it had been ingrained in me since childhood that losing a tool is a death sentence. Now, I knew he was messing me around and I let it go, but from that day forward, anytime we needed something, he'd make a comment like, "Sure wish I had that 7/16 wrench that Paul lost," or, "You know what would fix it? That missing 7/16 wrench." This went on for months, so one day he made the usual "tease me for losing a tool" comment, and I warned him. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Say it one more time, old man, and you're going to get a wrench every birthday, Father's Day, and Christmas for the rest of your natural life." A few hours passed, and I asked him to hand me a tool, and he said, "I can't, you lost it, remember?" I laughed and played it off, but it was on, and that was 18 years ago. Today, being Father's Day, he had just received his 52nd Craftsman's ratchet end 7/16 wrench. Since that day, he's tried telling me that he knows that I didn't lose it, and I knew that already, and that I don't need to buy another one. Oh, but I fricking do. And he's occasionally tried to say it was a different size or item to get a different present, but we both know that's not happening. They're everywhere. Every coffee can, junk drawer, cabinet, toolbox, pegboard, or spare nail in the house and garage contains a Craftsman's 7/16 ratchet end wrench. You know how they say you're never more than 8 feet from a spider? Well, in Dad's world, you're never more than 7 feet from a Craftsman's 7/16 ratchet end wrench, because there's at least 2 in his truck at this point as well. When will it end? When the old bastard dies. The last wrench will go in his cold, dead hand so he can tighten bolts in hell, because I warned him. God damn it, I warned him. Happy Father's Day to all of you with weird traditions, jokes, and relationships with the man who made you who you are today. And if you need a wrench, hit me up. I know a guy. In short, Dad teased me about losing a tool that he lost, and I've replaced it, as of today, 52 times. Too far? Am I the jerk? Well, the author sounded dead serious in that last section about following him to his grave, but honestly, this just sounds like a really funny running joke at this point. I hope your old man milks it and feigns complete excitement and cluelessness at what the present could be this year. He's already kind of admitted that he knows you didn't lose it, and he crossed the Rubicon after you gave him a very, very clear warning. So I'd say he knows that he was the one who basically made this happen. I do wonder how your mum feels about the entire house being decked out in wrenches. I can't imagine that going down well with my mum. So I'd say there isn't a jerk here, just a fun father-son running gag that's probably kind of annoying to everyone else, but is ultimately harmless. Your old pa might try to sell them on. Then maybe you can give him endless crap for losing your gift. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A Stitch in Time. I have been binge-watching videos of entitled parent stories, and I really wanted to contribute one myself. I haven't yet been able to remember any experiences of my own, so I asked a Japanese-American friend of mine, we'll call her I, because I know she grew up with a mum who was a real piece of work. She shared one of her "you won't believe what my mum did" stories with me, and I thought it might work here. So here's the background. So I's mother is a native Japanese. She was born there, immigrated to the US after college, speaking almost fluent English. I'm not sure if she specifically came to marry I's dad, or if they both met while they were here. That detail is a bit fuzzy to me. I do know that they married within a few years of her coming here, and I was their only child, although I think her dad had a son from a previous relationship. Now, I was both spoiled and somewhat messed up by her mother, which I hope I'll be able to explain. Her mum was always very concerned about how the family looked to outsiders. Their house had to look like a magazine was coming later to take photos for its next issue. The parents each had a car, and they always had to look brand new. Her dad was always getting hassled if he dared to wear a pair of pants with a single loose thread, and the mother herself was always wearing expensive clothes, makeup, with her hair done perfectly. I'm sure you get the picture. And I think the mother saw I as an extension of herself. From babyhood till almost her teen years, I had to be constantly dressed up. Imagine how a small child might look for a fancy party or for an important photo. Pricey dress, big bow in the hair, matching Mary Janes, and that's how I had to look all the time. She wasn't allowed to ever get dirty and was expected to have endless tea parties with her expensive dolls, I guess. From the outside, I probably looked like she had it made. Nice clothes, wealthy family, a dad who worshipped her, the most popular toys, and a mum who was very much ahead of the parent-teacher association, involved type. But the truth was, I felt stifled, even unloved by her mother. I is smart and always got good grades, but her mother would complain about anything lower than an A+. If I asked to wear jeans so she could play outside, Mum guilted her about how expensive her dresses were and told her she had all the latest toys, she could play with them indoors. I had her own laptop and smartphone before others of her age generally do, but this wasn't to make her happy. It was because it made the family look good for a girl not yet in her teens to have a MacBook and iPhone. And she had no say in her wardrobe until she was at least 13, at which time her maternal grandmother, who I adored, gave her a green suede jacket, which I never saw, but I said it was the one piece of clothing she ever had that she loved the most. One day she came home from school, intending to grab the jacket before walking her neighbor's dog. She was doing this because the neighbors were on vacation, and she just couldn't find the green suede jacket. I asked her mum, who said, "Oh, there was a hole in that couldn't be fixed, so I threw it away. We don't wear damaged clothes in this family." I was really upset, not least because her mum didn't seem sad about it in the least. Next time she visited her grandma, she told her grandmother about the jacket, and to cheer her up, Grandma showed I her favorite kimono, which I never saw either, but I said was a deep brown and patterned with trees and leaves all in gold. Just absolutely gorgeous. And Grandma told her, "When you die, you can have this kimono to make up for what you've lost, and to remember me." At this, I felt a little better, and to help her get her mind off the lost jacket, the grandmother spent the afternoon showing her pictures and telling her family stories that she hadn't heard before. When I was 17, her grandmother died after a fairly short illness. Something to do with her lungs, I think. I had been visiting her in the hospital daily, doing everything she could for Grandma, and had to do it alone because her mother was, quote, busy, and basically couldn't be bothered to do anything for her own dying mother. At the funeral, she put on a big show of grief to get attention and to be consoled, but I said the funeral was the only time she saw her mum cry over Grandma, and those tears were either partly or entirely fake. Her mum showed up for the reading of the will, though, and openly showed dissatisfaction with the bequest left to her. Some amount of money, I don't know how much, and she complained that I was left any money at all, although it had been set up in an account only I could access and not until her 18th birthday. I think Grandma put in safeguards so that entitled mother couldn't get any of that money. The will also listed some property, including the aforementioned kimono. I was so happy to be reminded that she was getting it, but after reading, her mother went up to her and said, "I hope you don't think you're getting that kimono. I'm her eldest daughter and I deserve it." While the family was still grieving, her mum was invited by some friends on a vacation somewhere tropical, supposedly to get her mind off the grief. Yeah, right. So she jetted off, basically leaving I to sort through and divide her grandmother's belongings by herself. She spent days in the house that was filled with a lifetime of paperwork and belongings, finally coming across the well-stored kimono that she had been shown years ago. This was when her very justified revenge began. When her mum returned from the trip, she saw that some of her grandmother's belongings had been placed around the house and in I's room, so she went to her daughter to demand the brown and gold kimono. With an expression of absolute innocence, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mother. There was a hole in that couldn't be repaired, so I had to throw it away. After all, we don't wear damaged clothes in this family, right?" I wishes, and so do I, that she had a picture of her mother's facial expression at that moment. Understand, this was not just a sentimental keepsake or a pretty dress for a party. Old kimonos, if well made and in good condition, can be sold to collectors for many thousands of dollars, which was probably what her mum had been planning to do. She started to speak several times, kept getting so flustered that her words wouldn't come out, and finally, she just walked away. I didn't get in any trouble. Her dad would have stepped in if she had. She'd just been following her family rule, right? When I told me this story, I said, "Shame about the kimono, though, that it was ruined," and I laughingly informed me that the kimono is in flawless condition. She keeps it stored in a hidden compartment in her closet. The will is clear, and her mum could get in legal trouble if she tried to take it. After she moves out of her parents' house, I plans to send her mother photos of herself in the kimono, which apparently looks amazing on her. No one has been sent to jail, yet at least. There was no violence, but I found this story pretty satisfying. I hope that it's pleased you, listeners. In short, a mother carelessly throws away her daughter's favorite jacket, claiming it's unfixable. Her daughter pretends to do the same with an heirloom kimono that the mum was wanting to inherit. Well done, I. That's some satisfying revenge on your stifling mother. I'll be completely honest, I'm surprised that she didn't just gloss over the fact that her own rule was thrown back in her face. I feel like most of our Karens and entitled parents do not give a single crap when they break their own rules. So it's honestly kind of surprising for her to keep it together in the heat of the moment when she believes that she's just missed out on a few $1,000s worth of kimono. The mother kind of sounds like a crazy helicopter parent. I would guess that I may well end up going with no contact with her when she leaves home. And we'll see about Dad. Maybe societal pressure will be enough to keep him in the household with her. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that I make more than both my siblings when they told me to get a real job? I'm a nanny to 2 special needs kids. There's a very high demand for nannies for special needs kids because 3 special needs daycares in my county shut down. So I make approximately $120K a year and live in the family's guest house rent-free. And they bought me a car so I can drive the kids around. My parents have the belief that any job in childcare isn't a real job. They went so far as to call my aunt, who majored in child development, and had her tell me how broke she is when I said I wanted to major in early childhood education. Then they told me I could either pick an acceptable major or they wouldn't pay for my college. I cut contact with them for a while in college, and we recently started talking again. I've been in contact with my siblings, though. My parents recently asked about my job and education and were not happy when I said I was a nanny and had my master's in special education. They made a comment that I'm working the same job that I've had since I was 15 and how I'll be broke forever, and then told me to get a real job like my brother, who's an accountant, and my sister, who's a nurse. I was angry and told my parents that I make more than both my brother and sister and I don't have to pay for rent, car payments, or gas. They hung up and I got a text from my sister saying I made her look bad to our parents. My brother said I should have just kept my mouth shut. Am I the jerk for telling my parents how much I make? Maybe a tiny bit for framing it in comparison to your siblings when you know how awful and single-minded your parents are about money being the most important thing, but we'll put that down to you snapping at your folks when they just wouldn't quit having a go at you for your very worthy career choice. I wonder if they immediately flipped 180 degrees and started badgering your accountant and nurse siblings to quit their jobs and take up caring for disabled children instead, if that's where the money is. I'd guess not. They're probably just a bit put out by the lack of glamour your job has in their eyes. Your siblings should probably just take a leaf out of your book and keep on doing whatever they want to do in any case. Your folks don't deserve to lord it over your life choices like this. Momzilla backhands me because I stop her demon child from touching my $3,000 PC. Now, I know you've heard a lot of these kinds of stories, but bear with me because it's not only a long one, it's my first one, and it doesn't have a happy ending. Starting off the story, my mum had her friends over for dinner because she hasn't seen them in 5 years and they have a 4-year-old kid. Also, the mum has a super big, "Where is the manager?" look. Anyways, they come over and I eat dinner. Because I'm the nice host, I ate with my guests. Also, anytime I have anyone over, I lock my door from the outside if I'm out and inside if I'm in. And my door is damaged because I slammed it once and a part of the side came off. There isn't a big hole in the door. Towards the end of dinner, I see this entitled brat running off towards my room and I don't think anything about it because it's locked, right? I have my gaming PC in there, it's a laptop, which is important for later. Then I hear a door open, and I'm very protective of my stuff, so I get up from the dinner table to see my door open, and I'm thinking, what the frick? How? It turns out the kid unlocked the door. How? I don't even know. He goes into my room and sees my gaming chair and immediately climbs up on it and tries to climb up onto my desk where my laptop is. I freak the frick out, and I grab him and put him on the ground, trying not to hurt him, and I say, "Hey kid, you can't climb on my belongings like that." "Why not?" This kid is 4, he said nut instead of not. "Because it's expensive and you could break it." "So?" "Just get out." So the kid leaves the room and not 40 seconds later I hear, "Excuse me," and my mother's name. I kid you not, this woman stomped to my room like Godzilla and then entered very calmly with her entitled brat. "Why won't you let my son play?" What? He never said anything about playing, he was just climbing on… "I don't give a crap, let my son play on your computer, and you're too old to even be playing anyway." I'm 13, by the way. I say, "All of my games are 18 years and up, I can't let him…" "I don't give a crap, just let him play whatever." So she left without her kid, and I just said, screw it and let him play, and choose whatever game. I swear on my life I should have just put on cool math games, because this little craphead clicked on the first game he saw in Steam, which was The Forest, which is a horror and survival game. And I was like, oh crap, in my head. Not kidding, literally 5 minutes into the game, he doesn't know what to do and just slams my mouse, and I was like, oh no, that's a no-no. And I jumped in front of my laptop trying to be the shield, and he literally punches me. I don't care because it didn't hurt, and when he realizes I won't let him play, he runs out to his mother. And she excuses herself calmly again, walks up to my door, shuts it quietly, and starts screaming like my mum can't hear it, like it was a soundproof room. But mother fricker, my mum was outside calling someone. So I guess my mum's deaf? Anyway, I'm much taller than this lady, which is still important, and I'll tell you how the conversation goes. She said, "I thought I told you to let my son play." Yes, I did, but no fricking buts. You let my son play again right fricking now. He tried slamming my stuff, and don't interrupt me, he tried slamming my mouse and destroying it. I don't give a crap about your stuff. She starts unplugging my PC. I said, what the frick are you doing? Get out of my house. I pulled her off while her child is trying to climb it again, and then I pulled the kid off. How dare you touch my child, you gosh damn child unspeakable act offender. And she slapped me, and I'm in disbelief. She then manages to pull my computer off my desk and starts walking away until I turn around from disbelief, and asked, what the frick do you think you're doing? At this point, my mother comes into the room. My mum grabs the laptop. What is going on here? Your son wouldn't let my son play games on his Xbox, so we took it and he's too old to play games anyway. My mum says, give my son his laptop back right now, please. And with the biggest smirk on my face, I open my mouth and yell, you ugly fricking cow Karen witch butt, get the frick out of my house. She says, no, and starts calling someone. Yes, hello. I have a guy here who just touched my child inappropriately and is verbally harassing me and assaulting me. Most whimpery voice ever. It's at this address. It's a woman and a man. No weapons. No. Yeah, I'm safe right now. Okay, thank you. We didn't do crap about it, but she called the cops. The fricking cops. So the cops came. One officer was talking to my mother. Excuse me, miss, were you the one who… And the entitled mother butts in with, yes, I'm the one who called. Oh, Lord, they touched my son and me. I'm standing right next to my mother. I say, I have no clue what she's talking about. Officer 1 says, please wait while she's talking. Entitled mother attempts to explain everything, even how I stopped her kid from climbing on my desk, how she hit me, how I yelled at her, and how I pulled her kid off my desk. Officer 2 says, "It sounds like you made a pretty bad image for yourself considering it's his house and your kid was climbing on his stuff. So he had every right and you hit him. So you're pretty much at fault if you ask me." Officer 1 says, "Yeah, this is pretty stupid, you're right." Now for some reason this made the lady super mad. "Did you just call me stupid?" "No, ma'am, Who the frick do you think you are?" And her dumb butt tries to tackle the officer, and it's the most cringy thing when she just falls off him. The officer stands there like, "Well, you're going to jail." Cuffs him and asks if I'd like to press charges. I said no and just wanted her out of my house. Well, that was insane. Has this woman never been around another human being before? Because I don't see how she's made it 4 years into motherhood without being arrested at this point. Maybe it isn't even her kid. Maybe she's fresh out of the loony bin and just managed to hold it together long enough to track down an old friend from before she lost her fricking mind. Honestly, I don't know that the story is real just because it seems so unlikely that this woman was just roaming around unarrested in regular life, especially if she behaved like this all the time. About as unlikely as it would be that the author's mother wouldn't see what was coming. The only part of the story that I won't contest is that completely unsuitable people like this do seem to reproduce constantly, otherwise we wouldn't have nearly as many stories to report on here. But this woman's Karen-ness just goes that bit beyond what we normally have, so I'm not sure if I totally buy it. If it's true, she's 100% the jerk, and no further inquiry. Entitled mother goes off on me because my rabbit is fed up with her kid. As a bit of backstory, I have a rabbit named Widget. He's an American chinchilla and Himalayan mix. He's black with brown eyes and grey and white fur in the bottom of his paws. I've had him for 4 years and he's really good with being handled. You can pick him up and carry him, move him around, among other things. I have a harness for him and I take him to the park every other weekend or so. The vet says he's a good weight, but I like to keep him in shape. He's great with kids. My cousin's 7-year-old kids play with him every time they're over. My rabbit, while well-trained, is still a prey animal. He'd thump his back legs to let me know he's fed up with attention and just wants to be left alone. On to the story. Last Sunday, I thought it would be funny to take him out for a walk considering it was Easter. I put him in his carrier and I took him to the park that's a few blocks from my house. We got there, I snapped the harness on and attached the leash, and we headed out. He starts bounding and leaping, and I have to keep up with him. The rabbit controls the walk. You can gently tug on the leash but not pull it, that could harm their spine. I've attracted some attention from other people curious about Widget at this point. I explain the story of how I've had him since he was a baby and whatnot. They ask to pet him and I say sure. I always tell people his favorite spot is his cheeks. He turns to putty when you pet him there. Most people just come, take a picture or pet him and then leave us alone. But not these 3 little girls. Again, Widget is great with kids and these girls seem very well behaved. One looked like she was 9, the other looked about 5, and one more was about 3. They all looked like sisters. They asked to pet him and I said yes. I even offer one of them to give him a treat if they want. The 5-year-old one agreed and I gave her a yogi. Widget took no time in eating it out of her palm. After a bunch of petting and, "Oh, he's so cute," I hear the thumping. "Okay, girls, he's getting tired. I'm going to take him home now." They looked sad but understood. The 3-year-old didn't care and kept petting him. He thumped again. I said, "Sweetie, that's enough. I have to get him home." "No! He needs a nap." At this point, the 9-year-old grabs her sister and the little girl started screaming bloody murder. "I want the bunny! No! Wah!" I gently pet Widget and pick him up so that I can carry him back to the car. As I turn around, someone screams at me, "Excuse me, what did you do to my daughter?" So I turn and I see this woman. She looks to be in her late 30s. Her hair is in a workout ponytail and she's wearing workout clothes. I say, "I didn't do anything, she wanted to keep petting my rabbit, but he's getting frustrated so I'm taking him home." "Oh, it's just an animal. Why can't my daughter pet him anymore?" He's tired of it, he wants to be left alone. "Then how come you're holding him?" "I raised him. He knows who his mother is." "All of you pet owners are the same. Who cares what the animal is feeling? Just let my daughter pet him." I say, "Happy Easter," and I turn around and walk away in an attempt to end the interaction. She grabbed my sleeve and yanked me so hard I almost dropped my rabbit. I set him down and screamed at her, "Are you crazy?" "Let my daughter pet him." I'm taking deep breaths. We've attracted a few bystanders. If she tries to pet him again, and he's fed up, he'll start to feel threatened, and he could lunge at her and maybe bite her. No, he can't. He's just a rabbit. They're gentle creatures. I look at Widget and see the girl is petting him again. I tell her to stop, and the mother just keeps talking over me. Widget thumps his legs 2 more times and then lunges at the girl. She's giggling, thinking it's funny. I'm warning you. The 9-year-old, Mom, let's just go. The bunny is tired and we don't want to upset. The 3-year-old starts wailing. The mother runs over to her and I pick up Widget. He nuzzles into my neck, trying to hide from the excitement. The 3-year-old has a mark on her hand. There's a little bit of blood, but not enough to warrant a lot of concern. The lady is furious. She points at Widget. That rabbit is a rabid animal. It bit my princess and needs to be put down. A random citizen says, She told you to leave him alone. Your kid had to learn the hard way. She seems embarrassed, but just picked up the 3-year-old, grabbed the 5-year-old by the hand and left. The 9-year-old says, Sorry, miss. Bye, Widget. I turn around and start walking away. Widget is trembling. I get him in his travel case and I take him home. I gave him another yogi once we were home. I put him in his cage and he flopped to his side and took a nap. I do feel bad for the kid. She didn't deserve to get bitten. She's still young and her mother just needed to teach her to understand that no means no. Unfortunately, her mum doesn't seem that well equipped. Hopefully her dad teaches her. Was I the jerk for letting the inevitable bite happen? Yeah, the author is first of all correct in that the 3-year-old kid can't really be blamed for that. A literal toddler isn't going to listen to anyone but their parent or something scary, and the mother in question was not at all interested in responsibly teaching boundaries with strangers and their pets. So the little girl gets the inevitable and forewarned chomping of a lifetime. What is it with the parents in these stories and equating animals as being completely unworthy of consideration for their comfort? It's almost like if you view an animal purely as an inanimate possession with no other value, you're a garbage person. That's just a bit of the narrator's personal bias shining through though. There might be some hope in the genes of this family. The 9-year-old girl seems nice. Hopefully there's some of that in the 3-year-old somewhere. She's going to need that inherent decency with the shocking example being set for her by her mother. And I can't stress this enough, thank God that awful woman didn't come after you and try to make poor Widget pay for what he did to her baby. Nobody wants that to be something you have to deal with, especially not the narrator of this video. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. You only pay mileage for the shortest possible trip? Okay then, you have to pay my tolls. At my job, every day I have to travel between 2 offices. I start at my main office and then have to travel to the second office, then back to my main office. Because I'm using my personal vehicle for this travel, the company pays me mileage. Well, there are basically 2 routes you can take between the 2 offices. One is about a mile round trip shorter, but has tolls. So I always took the 1 mile longer route and avoided the tolls. I did it this way for a year. Well, in comes the new bookkeeper and she is hell-bent on saving the company money. And where does she think all this wasteful money is going? Expense reports, obviously. So she starts nitpicking every report. Like if someone is out and has to buy some pens for work, she goes online and finds the cheapest price possible for those pens and only reimburses for that cheaper price. It obviously has annoyed several people. Well, she eventually decided to target me. I submitted my report for 2 weeks, and a few days later get the reimbursement payment. And it's $5.85 short. I ask her about it and she says, I've been ripping the company off for the past year by taking the longer route between the offices. She'll only pay mileage for the shorter route from now on, and I'm lucky that I don't go back and get all of the extra from the past year. I say, okay, but please send me the instructions that I must take the shorter route and that this is company policy, and I leave her office. Before I've even made it back to my desk, I had the email from her confirming what she said. 2 weeks later, I submit my expense report. I reported the shorter route, so the company had saved the $5.85, but the tolls added up to $136, a net loss for the company of $130.15. It's been 6 months and I'm still taking the shorter route, costing the company an extra $130.15 every 2 weeks. Yep, that is some grade A malicious compliance right there. But also, this supposedly miserly bookkeeper will moan and gripe about a trip being $5.50 too expensive, but doesn't notice the extra $130 in costs once you've complied with her demands? Maybe she remembers that you have her orders in writing and is just sort of hoping that everyone else overlooks it as well. I have to stress yet again, These expense people always seem to go after tiny, insignificant amounts of money to help balance the company budgets instead of just, axing someone from the one place that only ever seems to make people sad and increase expenses. That being the expense-responsible staff member in accounting. Seriously though, I feel like these particular people rear their heads a lot in this series. Get your crap together, bookkeepers. Gave a ride home to my boss. Huge mistake. I'm a 26-year-old male and I work at a local big box store. It sucks, I know, but I haven't had much luck entering the career I studied for. I worked a closing shift last week and I noticed that my boss was having car issues and I asked if he needed a ride. I drove him home and it was really awkward. He just talked about work and I got the sense it was his entire world. As I dropped him off, he says, "Pick me up here tomorrow at 7 a.m. I was like, yeah, sure, because I thought he was joking. He proceeds to tell me his car will need to be taken to a mechanic and he needs a ride tomorrow at 7 a.m. I reluctantly agreed. I've been driving him into work for a week now and he's gone so far as to change my shift schedule so that I start at the same time as him every day and get off at closing. He has me off for 4 hours in the middle of the shift so that I don't rack up any overtime hours. Yesterday, while driving him home, which is 15 minutes out of my way, I asked if he could pay for some gas. He went nuts. He said that I should be glad to even have a job and that I should be grateful for being able to make a connection with someone who's in a powerful position inside the company. I need the job, but I don't know what the heck to do. He hasn't even told me when his car is expected to be fixed. Life sucks right now. Wow, your boss is an absolute member. This is the reason why so many of us just don't do the right thing and help strangers. There are scumbags like him who'll take your whole arm off the moment you, for once in your life, try to do the right thing and offer a helping hand. I assume a big box store is a minimum wage retail job unless I'm mistaken, so screwing this employee around and stranding him in another part of town unless he drives back and uses more petrol really just comes across as callous and nasty. Maybe he could, just get screwed because it really seems like a net negative from every perspective. Sucks to be the author. Am I the jerk for unpacking my girlfriend's towel? I and my girlfriend have been dating for about 2 years. My girlfriend has beautiful hair that seems a lot more low maintenance than most women I know. She doesn't use 100 different hair products, nor does she blow it dry. It honestly doesn't take her long to style her hair or anything. However, she always insists on using this special towel to dry her hair. She insists that she can't use any regular towel for her hair. She gets mad if I use her hair towel as a regular towel as well. She says that the towel should only be used for her hair. She even bought an extra one of these towels that she keeps in a drawer at my place. She also takes the towel with her when she goes on vacation. I usually don't mind it, since the towel doesn't take up much space, and it's better than listening to a hairdryer all the time. But it's a bit weird because I don't know anyone else who has a towel just for their hair. For Thanksgiving, we traveled to see my family. Before the trip, I asked my girlfriend to leave her towel at home, since we'll be staying at my parents' house. I didn't want my family to think she was weird or make fun of her. Since we planned to leave early in the morning, girlfriend spent the night at my place. I noticed that she packed the towel she kept at my place in her suitcase. When she was asleep, I took the towel out. She didn't notice that the towel was gone until after we got to my parents' house. I thought it was okay, and my girlfriend didn't seem mad at all during the whole trip. However, when we got back to my place, my girlfriend got into her car and drove off without saying goodbye. She texted me later saying she's mad at me because of that stupid towel and she needs some space. I keep calling and texting her, but she won't respond. My friends think she's being overly dramatic, but my girlfriend isn't that type of person. Now I'm wondering if I messed up. Am I the jerk? I don't know, man. I know that this is a relatively low-stakes story, and we're not dealing with some of our other arrays of madness, vandalism, and sabotage that we often deal with on the channel. But what's with the author not letting her bring her towel because they, and I quote, didn't want my family to think she was weird or make fun of her? If that happens, my man, you stand up for your partner because that is not the kind of thing that her in-laws should be tearing her apart over on a family visit. And the fact that you thought that they would definitely do that raises some really interesting questions about them. And then you had to go sneaky and manipulative and go behind her back to get rid of the offending item. I don't know if I think your intentions were even in the right place, but even if they were, you went about this in such a weird way. I'll admit I'm curious about what's going on with your girlfriend's magic hair and towel, though.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.